What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto was born from the divine tree core? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments, and also check the description box to original creator of this beautiful creation. I stared down at the pair of cribs sitting side by side, their occupants sleeping quietly, and not for the first time wonder if this is the right thing to do. I can hear the screams coming from the battlefield even from here, and I know the nine-tailed fox is getting closer by the second. I hope in my heart that the village will see the child I use as a hero, but I fear deep inside that humans aren't that forgiving. If I had a child they would be the one used for this, but sadly that isn't the case, so I am instead about to put the burden on a family. A family that will never know him or be there to guide him. I can't expect to be forgiven for this, nor do I want to be. He is such a cute little boy with bright blonde hair and with those stunning blue eyes. People would say he looks like me, but I know his resemblance comes from his family and in time would have matched the little girl resting beside him. That is the reason he has been chosen, not because of some mythical prophecy or special sign, but because by using him I don't completely rob a pair of parents of all their children. They will still have their daughter, and Kami willing their son will be safe. I never truly thought being Hokage would involve something like this, but it's the only choice I have to protect the entire village. Picking the infant up, I was startled when his twin sister opened her eyes and stared right at me. Those intense blue eyes seemed to glare at me in accusation, as if she knew what I was planning to do. I looked down to find the baby boy in my arms staring at me as well, though his gaze seems far more innocent. Please forgive me for what I am about to do to you both, I whispered before turning and walking away from the cribs, and both children began to wail. He didn't stop crying even after I placed in the designated spot surrounded by candles and seals. I can sense Jiraiya sensei, or as I call him Ero Sennin, behind me bearing the same look of resigned depression. He will be the only one to know this secret by the time this night ends. Sannin or not, if the Yamanaka find out what we have done he will suffer far more than I am about to. Am I doing the right thing? I ask him for the 6th time since hearing of the Kyuubi's march on Konoha. No, but you're doing the only thing you can, brat. The kid will be turned into a weapon of war any other way maybe, though this way your idea of him being a hero has a shot. The white-haired frog summoner answered. Will you watch over him for me, Ero Sennin? Sarutobi sensei will look out for him, but if I am ever around I'll check on him. Promise me something. What's that, brat? My techniques. I want you to come back here one day and teach them to him. It's the only way they will live on, and in some small way it might atone for what we're doing. I explained. Alright brat, if he becomes a ninja I'll teach some things. This is where my story ends, because as soon as I stop writing I will be going to seal the Kyuubi inside our container, and because of the technique itself I will die. I couldn't just let things go unsaid though, so I wrote everything down, and here we find ourselves. Sarutobi, you're most likely the person who will find this. If not, you will defiantly read it, so I will reveal the secret I take to my grave. On this day, October 10th, 2 children were born, but only one will be found in her crib. The 2 children who were born today were a pair of twins of the Yamanaka clan. Yamanaka Ino and Yamanaka Naru. Uzumaki Naruto was the only name I could come up with to give him, but I like the sound of it. I hope he is a happy child and man, but now I must be off the battle and Shinigami call me. Sincerely, the 4th Hokage, Kazama Arashi, Konoha's Yellow Flash. The Sandaime Hokage of the village hidden the leaves, let the scroll drop down onto his desk in shock. Pieces he had never thought about were falling into place concerning the blonde genin. He raised a hand up to massage his temples, slipping his large hat off. Matters were made worse by Naruto being away with his team on their first C-ranked mission. Rising from his chair he moved out onto the balcony, leaving his hat behind and looking to the Hokage monument. Aged eyes were drawn to the face of his brief successor, and for a while he just stood there watching that stone likeness, contemplating what to do. He had believed for a long time that Naruto had been Arashi's son, but now that theory was gone and the boy had a family out there. The only problem with that concerned whether or not they would accept him. Naomi-chan. He called out, knowing the young Chunin who served as his secretary would hear him. Yes, Hokage-sama? The dark-haired leaf ninja asked, opening the door to his office and peeking in. I need to see Yamanaka Inoichi and Sarutobi Asuma now. Send Anbu out to find them if need be. I would like you to also inform Inuzuka Sume that I have an urgent mission for her. He stated in a tired voice. Right away, Hokage-sama. she replied and quickly set out to do the tasks asked of her. I'm getting too old for this, Sandame thought, moving back to his desk and waiting for his visitors. Today had started so good with so little paperwork, and so he had gone rummaging through the archives for files Arashi had left behind and sadly run across that scroll. Of course the light paperwork load was most likely because Naruto wasn't in the village to cause his usual pranks. He supposed something like this had to happen or else he might have actually gotten bored. Yamanaka Flower Shop. In the case of clans in Konoha, the Yamanaka is not the first name that comes to mind. While they are not as large as the Hyuga, by no means are they small either. This however does not mean they should be discounted, as their family jutsu and natural mental abilities are quite the asset to the village of the Hidden Leaf. Yamanaka Inoichi was one of the few members of his clan who chose to live outside their estate. This was mostly because his wife had a passion for flowers and her work as a florist. Inoichi was also considered one of the strongest, if not the strongest, of his clan, and it showed by his impressive record as a Junin. Most of his clan chose to take up careers outside of the ninja way, yet every one of them were taught how to defend themselves and carry on the legacy of the blood. According to official records, this clan is roughly 50 to 80 members strong. Currently Inoichi was working with his kunai by having a little target practice in the yard behind the shop. He stopped and tensed though when he felt a presence nearby and turned, spying a man garbed in the uniform of Anbu and wearing the mask of a weasel. Slipping his kunai into place, he greeted the man, wondering what was going on. Yamanaka-san, the Hokage has wished to see you immediately on a matter of utmost importance, the man stated before vanishing in a swirl of leaves. I wonder what's going on. If there was a prisoner they needed help with, plenty of my family are already in Anbu. Well, I guess I better hurry and see what the trouble is, he said to himself before vanishing as well. The Junin had no idea just how much his world was about to change. Training Field 10. Yamanaka Ino, Akamachi Choji, and Nara Shikamaru each were practicing their individual skills with diligence under the watchful eyes of their Junin sensei Sarutobi Asuma. That is to say, Ino was practicing her skills, while Choji sat by snacking and occasionally throwing a kunai or shuriken, and Shikamaru was playing Go with Asuma while also cloud watching. What is it? What is it? What is Boterhing me? Ino chanted in her mind, running up the trunk of her tree again and continuing to the top before running down, working on her control and stamina. The blonde Kunoichi was pushing herself, and her teammates knew better than to disturb Ino when she got in such moods. Ino-chan seems energetic today, Asuma commented while studying the board. TCH, she is too troublesome to worry about, the lazy Nara replied, looking at the sky. He caught a sudden incoming kunai between his fingers and looked to the glaring blue-eyed thrower. Shikamaru considered glaring back but considered it too troublesome. When Ino got in this mood, it was just better to find shelter until whatever caused it faded away. Get up, you lazy bum, we should be training, not sitting around. Come on, let's spar or something, she ordered, landing on the ground. That's far too troublesome to do, he replied. Before an argument could break out, a raven-masked Anbu member landed in their field silently but still drawing all four sets of eyes to him. He bowed to Asuma simply before speaking. I apologize for interrupting your team meeting, Asuma-san, but the Hokage has requested your presence in his office about an urgent matter. With that, the Anbu vanished into a swirl of leaves. Well, I guess we can call it quits for today. I will see you guys tomorrow, Asuma stated before lighting a cigarette and walking off towards the Hokage tower. Shikamaru got up and went to lie on the grass next to Choji, staring up at the clouds as they went by. Ino narrowed her eyes and growled before starting to impale a training dummy with shurikens to hopefully vent her growing energy. Ino suddenly dropped to her knees, grabbing her head with her hands and slamming her eyes shut. Pain was lancing through her mind along with a flood of images and feelings. A sense of fear and dread filled her heart, almost like a part of herself was about to die. She let out a shrill scream before darkness overtook her. Wave Country, Kage Bushin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone Technique, yelled a blonde dressed in orange, forming a seal. All around him puffs of smoke occurred, and when they faded they were at least 20 perfect copies of him. The group of clones along with their creator leapt into the air with kunai drawn. Their targets were mirrors seemingly formed out of ice that floated around them in the shape of a dome. In each mirror was the reflection of a masked ninja with long black hair dressed in the garb of Mist Country Hunter Nen. Watching the blonde attack on the ground was another young man dressed in a dark blue shirt and white shorts with dark hair and eyes. Suddenly his eyes shifted, becoming crimson with one simple black comma mark in each eye. A blur began to move from one mirror to another, annihilating the clones and dealing damage to the original, but the distraction had seemed to serve its purpose as the dark-haired boy brought his hands up and began cycling through seals rapidly. Kaden. Gukakyu no Jutsu. Fire release. Great fireball technique, he called out and brought his hand up to his mouth. Breathing outward through his hand, he released a stream of fire that formed into a ball, flying forward and brushing the enemy, slightly igniting the skirt like covering the masked person wore. The moment passed and the hunter Nin entered another mirror, safe for the moment. Uzumaki Naruto landed on the ground after the latest offensive on the mirrors with more injuries. The 12-year genin sucked in as much air as his lungs could hold and allowed his mind to reminisce about how they had arrived at this point. The newly formed Genin Team 7 had been given a simple C-ranked mission of escorting a bridge builder named Tazuna back to his home in Wave and protecting him until he finished a bridge. It was supposed to be simple, with maybe a few bandits attacking them at most. In retrospect, he should have known life was never that good to him. First, they had been attacked by a pair of missing nins from the mist known as the Demon Brothers. In that fight, Naruto had frozen up and had to be saved by his dark-haired teammate Uchiha Sasuke. He'd been poisoned because of his inaction and had used a kunai to forcibly drain the tainted blood. Like all his wounds, it healed within minutes. A side effect of the curse placed on him as a baby. After the fight, their client had explained that he and his country only had enough money to pay for a C-ranked mission because of the poor state of Wave. Evidently, a shady character named Gatu had basically taken over the shipping lanes of Wave and robbed the country of its lifeblood in order to fill his own pockets. Tazuna was building his bridge in order to bring back the courage of his homeland and bring commerce back. In the end, Team 7, despite the protests of the pink-haired kunoichi of the team Haruno Sakura, chose to continue on. Things only got worse though when an A- class missing nin named Zabuza, the demon of the bloody mist, attacked. He fought the team's silver-haired Junin sensei Hitaki Kakashi, who revealed that the eye he kept hidden under his forehead protector was really a Sharingan eye. Even though Kakashi had gotten captured in one of Zabuza's Suiru no Jutsu, water prison technique, he and Sasuke had gotten him out with an impressive showing of teamwork. After that, it seemed Kakashi had him beat until Zabuza had been nailed in the neck by Senbon needles. As they followed the needles, they discovered a dark-haired hunter nin, who apologized for not striking sooner and thanked them for helping dispose of the missing nin. The boy, no older than Naruto, then took the body and vanished from the scene. Kakashi then collapsed from prolonged use of his Sharingan along with severe drain of powerful jutsus, which coupled together caused a case of severe chakra depletion. Eventually they had made it to Tazuna's house and Kakashi-sensei recovered from depleting so much of his chakra. It was only when their sensei awoke that they also discovered that they had been tricked by the hunter nin and Zabuza was indeed alive. They trained relentlessly, pushing their bodies to the edge in preparation for the unavoidable battle. Indeed, they had each improved by leaps and bounds, but even with it they seemed to be fighting a losing battle against the Kekkei Genkei, bloodline ability, of the masked ninja. Do you truly wish to die here? No matter how fast you become, I will always move faster, the fake hunter nin stated. Naruto let out a rasp of air followed by a laugh, drawing both ninjas' attention to him. What's my life worth anyway? At least if I die here I will have been of some use. You say a shinobi has to slay their heart in order to exist, then why haven't you killed us yet? He gasped out, unable to get to his feet. I have no desire to end your lives. Just give us the bridge builder and you can walk away from this place. No, I gave my word to protect him and to bring life back to this place. I'll never go back on my word, believe it. You idiot, stop talking and conserve your strength, I can't do this alone. Sasuke thought, watching the exchange. Very well, to help Zabuza-sama achieve his dreams I will slay my heart and truly become a shinobi. I'm sorry, it has to be this way. The mirrors seemed to flash as the masked nin made his move. No, he's going for Naruto, the Uchiha predicted, and began moving as fast as he could. A hail of needles surged forward like a deadly storm towards the container of the nine-tailed fox Kyuubi. Time seemed to slow down as fear filled the young ninja. He closed his eyes waiting for the pain, but none ever came. Naruto slowly opened his eyes to find Sasuke laying before him, his body filled with the needles destined for him. "Why, did you protect me?" Naruto asked in a sad voice, watching blood leak from Sasuke's lips. "I don't know, my body just started moving." "Naruto, don't die until you kill that man for me. You're the only one who can fulfill my dream now. If you don't, then my death meant nothing," he responded with a labored breath before closing his eyes seemingly for the last time. "This the first time you've seen death, isn't it? You must have been very precious to that boy for him to protect you like that. Do not worry, I will send you to join him." Tears leaked from Naruto's eyes as more pain than he had ever thought possible filled his heart. He had sworn never to cry another tear when he had turned 6, but now they wouldn't stop. The anger and sorrow that had lived inside of him, growing every miserable day he existed, was making itself known in that moment. Pain closed around his head like a vice, yet it was weakening with each second. Crack. Naruto was 5 and kneeling in tears as the orphanage threw him out on his own. The small boy didn't understand what he had done wrong this time, but now he was homeless. No one was there to comfort him or even care that he was hurting. It would be 3 hours before the old man that always visited came by and showed Naruto to his apartment. Crack. The adults at the playground had run him off again because he tried to play with the other children. The blonde had tried apologizing for a long time for whatever he had done to make everyone hate him, but it never seemed to work and only made them angrier. Crack. Naruto sat alone, slumped down in his chair at the academy. Everyone was exchanging cards or talking, and yet no one came to him or brought him a card. Ino was also handing out invitations to her birthday party and looked ready to hand one to the dejected-looking boy. Before she could do so, though, Sakura began some sort of argument over Sasuke and Naruto was left forgotten. Crack. Naruto sitting on the swing outside the academy, all alone on graduation day while others were congratulated by their parents. Crack. Mizuki revealing the truth about the fox sealed inside him by the fourth Hokage. Crack. Inari crying in his room, eyes looking out to the sea and the picture of his father clenched in his hand. Crack. Sasuke laying on the concrete of the bridge, his body riddled with needles and blood flowing from his lips. Shatter. The fake hunter Nin was about to end the fight with an attack, when suddenly smoke and steam began rolling off of Naruto, flowing out of the demonic ice mirrors. It surrounded the young blonde, spiraling like a torrent upwards. Just as quickly as it gathered, the steam was shoved away by something far worse. Blood-red chakra flowed around his body and spiraled upwards. Then another huge spike of energy was felt as violet-colored energy joined the violent storm of power around the blonde. While the crimson chakra felt evil and truly malevolent, the other seemed to just exist, dancing and turning in the maelstrom that was Naruto. Slowly smoke rose from his wounds and almost instantly they healed up. All of the needles piercing his body were pushed out. The red chakras suddenly formed together, creating a giant fox head that roared at Haku before shooting into the sky. Naruto growled, his whisker-like birthmarks deepening with shadows becoming black lines. Claws extended from his hands and the once bright blue of his eyes became crimson with the pupils slit to resemble a fox. Kakashi halted in his duel with Zabuza, his eyes being drawn to the dome of ice mirrors. He could sense 3 different types of energy in there, all of which belonged to his blonde student. The sight of the red chakra only confirmed what he feared. Has the seal broken? No, it can't be. And what is this third energy? It doesn't feel like chakra. Naruto, what's going? It's like your emotions have been turned into pure energy. I have to end this fight now before something worse happens, he thought, pulling out a scroll. Where is this power coming from? I don't understand. Is this another Kekkei Genkai? I have to end this now. Zabuza-sama needs me. The masked ninja thought and prepared to attack. You shouldn't announce your plans. Naruto spoke, though his voice was deeper and filled with malice. What does he mean? Can he read my mind? No time to think about it, I'm almost out of chakra. All of the mirrors' reflections of the enemy took the same stance, drawing senbon needles and letting them fly at the demon container. The result, however, was not as it would normally be. I'm going to kill you, Naruto screamed, throwing his arms out widely. The demonic chakra spread out around him, disintegrating the incoming needles on contact. Responding to the storm of emotions flowing through his mind, the violet energy flashed brightly, mimicked by a small flash from his slit pupils. The dark-haired ninja suddenly found himself flying backwards out of his mirror, feeling pain as if he had been hit full-on in the chest by a boulder. The mirror he had been in shattered around him as he landed roughly on the concrete bridge. Looking up, he stalled a gasp. A roaring and tinkling sound was heard as every mirror had seemingly been struck the same way, shattering into beautiful shards of ice. They rained down around Naruto, the light reflecting off of them in a brilliant display. He evidently hadn't struck a one yet, somehow they were broken. How did he? The thought was interrupted as Naruto suddenly appeared in front of him, bringing a hard punch into his gut. "Because I am stronger and you talk too much," the blonde declared, knocking his enemy back with a sharp punch into his mask. The masked ninja went to make a one-handed seal, only for Naruto to catch his wrist. Peering into the blonde's eyes, he was overwhelmed with a sense of fear from the sheer amount of killing intent. He felt his mask shatter with the next punch that had seemed to carry more than just chakra, more like an invisible force was added into it. Naruto went in for another punch, ready to rip the face off of the bastard in front of him. That is until the mask finished slipping off, revealing the familiar face of Haku, an effeminate boy he had met in the forest the day previous when he awoke from training too long. He stopped himself inches from making contact, his mind confused, the red chakra slowly deflating around him along with his demonic transformation. "Why did you stop? Aren't you going to avenge your friend's death?" Haku asked, staring at the wide-eyed blonde. Naruto was silent, his eyes showing the myriad of emotions rolling through him. Slowly they were growing to a grand crescendo, and Haku could hear him whispering in a voice too young to experience this kind of tragic life and pain. Why would you? Why would you pretend to be my friend? Why would you pretend to care? Why did you kill Sasuke if you cared?" He screamed at the end, directing all of his emotions at Haku, the violet energy lashing out in an invisible wave at him. Haku felt his entire body seize up as the wave passed through him. Nerve endings became deadened, making his body numb, and he could feel his nervous system completely disrupted, robbing him of command over his body. Blood exploded from his mouth, coating Naruto as his heart and lungs simply ceased working. Falling backwards, Haku heard the sound of birds chirping, and only one thought escaped his mind before death claimed him. "You and I are the same. Maybe if we had met before, we could have been friends. Zabuza-sama, I'm sorry, but I failed you." With a serene smile, Haku fell into the eternal darkness. Naruto had heard Haku's whispered final words, even though his lips hadn't moved. A new feeling was invading his senses as he stood there. It couldn't be defined, it was like a dying fire. The embers were stopping their glow, and the soft, soothing crackle of the flame vanished, leaving only a bitter cold. A cold that encompassed all your senses, robbing you of every sensation, reaching into the very core of your being and leaving only silence. An absolute void. Blood slowly slid down his face, filling his nostrils with a sickening coppery smell. The congealed glop would slip off his chin, falling as heavy drops to land on the bridge. It could almost appear like Naruto was crying tears of blood. The mist covering the bridge slowly slid away, revealing the dead and slightly mutilated corpse of Zabuza. Naruto tried to grasp this new feeling even as Tazuna and Sakura moved past him towards Sasuke. Then it hit like a piece of knowledge had suddenly finished crystallizing in his brain. Haku was dead. Shakily he reached forward towards the serene face of Haku and slowly slid his eyes shut. Moving his hand back, he pulled an herb out of his pocket Tsunami had told him was a rare find and quite useful for medicine. Naruto had planned to give it to his new friend before leaving Wave. Setting it in the boy's hand, Naruto did something he had never before considered or attempted to do. "If Kami exists, may he give you a better life than this one. I hope you find happiness wherever you are because you deserve it." He whispered his first ever plea to God. He turned around as Sakura began to cry, her wails filling the bridge. Kakashi was little better. While he didn't cry, you could say the self-blame already setting in. Naruto could hear them speaking, but neither was moving their mouth. "He's not dead." Naruto announced, his tears for Haku drying up, but his head remained down. All three heads snapped to his position. "What?" Sakura asked in disbelief. "Naruto-kun, what do you mean?" Kakashi spoke a second later. "I don't know how, but I can sense him. I know he's not dead. When I killed Haku, I could feel him die." Naruto explained. The silver-haired Junin blinked, sliding his forehead protector down over his Sharingan eye. Moving forward, he flashed through hand seals and performed a simple medical diagnostic jutsu. The visible eye widened as he felt the results. "Naruto's right," he announced. Hey, not exactly like I planned but close enough. Naruto suddenly heard and whipped his head around to the unfinished section of the bridge. Approaching the group was a piggy little man dressed in an expensive suit and using a cane. A pair of sunglasses rested on his brow, and even by Naruto's standards the guy was short. He was being followed though by a small army of thugs not unlike the pair the blonde had dealt with before coming to the bridge. Demon of the Bloody Mist, indeed. I guess this means I don't have to pay them the money I promised. I do owe him some gratitude though for tiring out all of your bodyguards for me, Tazuna. The little man said in a grating and annoying voice. The men behind all laughed. Naruto bit his lip as he watched no one open their mouth but could hear every one of them speaking clearly. It was like being in a loud stadium with a restless crowd. If the blonde demon container didn't know better, he'd think he was reading their thoughts or minds. So you're Gato, Kakashi stated, getting to his feet and walking to stand next to Naruto. He knew it was a front as the jutsu he used to kill Zabuza had pretty much drained him of most of his chakra. They're too weak to fight, so I'll just order my men to finish them and this will be over. Don't underestimate us, Gato, that's what Zabuza did, Naruto said as if he were just responding to the comment he heard. Nice bluff, kid, too bad you'll never get old enough to play poker. Kill them all and bring me their heads. Leave the girl, actually I know a few places she could be sold for good money. Gato stated, drawing a growl from Naruto, the violet aura flaring in his eyes. This is the guy who's caused all the problems for Wave. The man who killed Inari's dad while the kid watched. The bastard that led me to killing such an innocent soul. This bastard, I wish he would just drop dead. Naruto raged mentally, directing all his hate and depression at that man and his men. He watched in horror as Gato's eyes glazed over like Haku's and he began to convulse before spitting out a huge spray of blood and toppling to the ground unmoving and without drawing breath. Naruto allowed his eyes to widen in horror. Oh God, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that again. He muttered, feeling the nothingness of Gato's life passing. Naruto? Kakashi asked, looking at his student. I did the same thing to Haku. I don't know how though. The blonde replied, breathing heavily. For some reason he was really tired after Gato died. Hey, that was our boss, now who's going to pay us? Guess we have to loot the town for everything it's worth. One of the braver thugs stated, only for the moment to be ruined by an arrow impacting on the bridge. Suddenly Naruto grabbed his head in pain and sunk to his knees, the adrenaline that had been surging through him finally fading away, leaving him far more exposed to the noise. It was made all the worse by the addition of the entire population of Wave confronting the thug army. He allowed the blissful silence of unconsciousness to wrap around him as the people of Wave took back their home. Naruto's mind. Naruto found himself standing ankle deep in violet water. Taking a look around, he noticed wherever he was it resembled a sewer, yet the walls seemed to be changing slowly. Happy that at least for the moment it was quiet, the blonde began walking, intent on exploring this place or at least figuring out where he was. Weird place, I wonder how I got here? He asked out loud, noticing several pipes. He began to follow them. Naruto never noticed that behind him the sewer was becoming something else. Unbeknownst to him, a pair of slit eyes was watching his every move from behind a set of cage bars. Deep within the mind of Naruto, 9 long tails swished wildly. The Kyuubi was watching the being that served as its jailer with calculating eyes. To think my survival depends upon such a small and ignorant kid of these humans. One would also think by now this kid would have been driven to insanity by his own people. Loyalty as unwavering as his is quite uncommon for his breed. This kid is special, and it seems my presence has unlocked something buried deeply within his blood. It will be entertaining to watch how this little drama plays out. A little entertainment for my confinement until I am once more free. Grow strong, little Naruto, and I may have a use for you as you have protected me for 12 long years. Even I would not forget such a debt. The fox thought continued to watch Naruto wander his own mind. Hokage's office. Sarutobi Asuma allowed the unlit cigarette in his mouth to fall to the floor in surprise as Sandame finished his explanation. Next to him Inoichi sat with his eyes wide, seemingly stiff as a statue. The chain-smoking Junin couldn't imagine how hard this was for the blonde Yamanaka to hear. Inoichi placed the scroll back on the desk as he finished confirming the Hokage's words. Numbness was the first feeling that settled in his soul as the truth slowly sank in. My son isn't dead. Why Arashi-kun, out of all the children born during that time? Why did you use my son? All this time our little Naru has been right here and we never knew. Why wasn't I allowed to know he was my son? He thought, his mind trying to grasp some sort of explanation, any explanation for what he perceived as a betrayal. A betrayal by someone he had always seen as a slightly younger brother. It wasn't a well-known fact, but Arashi and Inoichi had been friends growing up along with Nara Shikaku and Akamichi Shuza. The pair of blondes often got into arguments or as adults sunk to the level of maturity found in 4-year-olds. When he had started going out with his future wife, Misao, Arashi had dubbed him Whipped Nin, which led to Inoichi giving Arashi the nickname Clueless Baka, because of his inability to understand any woman. The doors suddenly burst open, admitting an out-of-breath and panic-looking Nara Shikamaru. The lazy genius's hair was a mess and he was hunched over his knees taking deep gulps of air. This was quite an uncommon sight for anyone to see. "Shikamaru-kun, what's wrong?" Asuma asked, getting over the shock first. "It's Ino, she passed out at the training field from pain. Choji is taking her to the hospital, but it looked like her head was in pain," she screamed before blacking out. He stated with actual worry in his tone. Shikamaru had barely finished speaking when Inoichi launched himself out of the Hokage's window. The blonde Yamanaka took to the rooftops, moving with all the speed a Junin possessed towards the hospital. He had a bad feeling about this. Asuma stayed silent but looked at his superior, waiting to be dismissed so he could check on his student. Seeing the nod from the Hokage, he collected Shikamaru and was off like a shot. Tazuna's residence. The sound of perverted giggling slowly penetrated the peaceful fog of Naruto's mind, gently rousing him. Slowly he opened his eyes and found the world around him to be quite blurry. Blinking, his surroundings quickly solidified into the ceiling of the room he was sharing with Sasuke at the bridge builder's house. "Oh, this is great, I wonder what Masami-chan will do next. Jiraiya-sama is the greatest writer ever." She began to slowly slip off her towel, revealing her large Baka. "Kakashi-sensei, don't read your perverted book out loud," Naruto declared, fully awake and glaring at the eternally late Junin for daring to try and poison his mind. "Ah, so you're finally awake, Naruto-kun. You should calm down, a young man your age shouldn't be so stressed, maybe you need a vacation." "I wasn't reading aloud, but if you want I can tell you a story," Kakashi said, looking up from his book, his one visible eye curving to show he was smiling. "Don't try and lie to me, sensei, I could hear you plain as day," he accused, crossing his arms. "Naruto, what you are hearing right now are my thoughts." "Yeah right, Kakashi-sensei, it's impossible for some to read minds or eavesdrop on thoughts. You're just talking and your mask hides your mouth. Don't try to prank a prankster." "I guess I have to prove it to you then?" Kakashi mused and rose. Walking out of the room, he came back a minute later with Sasuke and Sakura, then took his seat. "Looks like the Dobi is awake, about time, he's taking away from time that could be used to train. Sasuke-kun is so cool, I bet he could have taken that Hokage all by himself, Naruto just got in the way." "Hell yeah, Sasuke-kun rules, stupid Naruto." Naruto blinked, he was sure he hadn't seen their lips move and yet he heard them clearly. The fact that his teammates insulted him was also pissing him off. Though why did Sakura talk normally then speak in another louder and far more annoying voice? "Now I want to discuss what we will be doing once we return to Konoha. Also, it seems Naruto-kun has unlocked a new ability." Their sensei explained, opening his book. "The Dobi is stronger? Naruto Baka has a new skill, probably something to help him be a bigger pain. Little idiot shrimp isn't of any use." Now Naruto was getting angry, a small violet ring was forming around his pupils. He bit his lip, trying to calm down, remembering what had happened last time. The ring of color slowly faded from his, though not even he had known it was there. Kakashi, however, had noted it. "Not like it matters now that I've awakened my Sharingan, but what is the Dobi's new skill?" Sasuke asked with an arrogant smirk, his eyes shifting to the level 1 Sharingan. "Wow, Sasuke-kun, you're the coolest." Sakura gushed and Naruto balled his hand into a fist, the ring returning to his eyes. "Just one step closer to killing Itachi, but maybe the Dobi has some new jutsu I can copy." "Sasuke-kun has the Sharingan now, that's so cool, nothing Naruto has could ever top that. He is gonna be all mine and Ino Pig can just cry over it." Mrs. Uchiha Sakura. "Yeah, true love conquers all. Are you convinced now, Naruto-kun? I know you can hear what I can't, and whatever it is, it's upsetting you." Kakashi thought, looking at his blue-eyed student. Alright guys, maybe we should wait until we're back in Konoha to have this chat. Naruto-kun need his rest if we want to leave soon. With that, the two other genin rose and left the room and Naruto flopped back down on his bed. What's wrong with me, Kakashi-sensei? He asked, staring at the ceiling. Don't worry Naruto-kun, as soon as you're rested up we'll head back to Konoha and have you checked out. I promise everything will be fine, I just don't have the medical knowledge to know what's going on, but the Hokage will. Until then just try to relax and stay calm. I think that whatever this is, it only manifests itself in response to heavy amounts of emotion. Kakashi replied with his eye curved upwards. Does it ever get easier, Kakashi-sensei? Killing, I mean? Naruto suddenly asked. No, but it is a part of the life we live as shinobi. As a ninja of the leaf, Naruto-kun, you will be asked to kill. Sometimes the entire point of the mission is to assassinate someone, like Zabuza was only here to kill Tazuna-san. It is worse for you because somehow you have been able to feel it, but all I can say, if you must kill, then don't lose yourself to it. Thanks Kakashi-sensei. Naruto said, yawning, and laid back down, closing his eyes and slipping off to sleep, his mind reaching out to another. Yamanaka Inoichi stood next to a white hospital bed, his wife Misao sitting in the chair right next to him. In the bed, resting peacefully with a serene look on her face, was their daughter Ino, though behind her closed eyelids her eyes moved rapidly. Scattered around the room were other figures, including Nara Shikamaru, Akamichi Choji, and Sarutobi Asuma, the other members of Team 10, all worried about the blonde young woman and wishing to lend her and her parents strength. The doctors and medic Nin said that Ino was seemingly fine in the physical aspect, with no injuries what they could detect or explain her fainting. Mentally, the kunoichi, it seemed to be on a dreaming state. But her mind wasn't at rest, in fact, it was in overdrive, reaching out for something or someone. Pathways in her mind that appeared unused and neglected were being repaired and forced open. For now the incident in the training field was left unexplained, but everyone believed for now all what Ino needed was time to rest. This, however, was not the only worry for the pair of parents as they sat watching their little girl. Once Ino was stable, Inoichi had told his wife of his meeting with the Hokage and the revelation of the real fate of their supposedly dead son. Misao had collapsed into tears of both joy and misery at the news, supported by her husband's strong arms. 12 years had passed, and still the wound of thinking what one of her babies had died was still fresh to the mother's heart. The two had gone so far as to celebrate Ino's birthday on the 21st of September instead of that day to ensure her birthday was a happy affair with no mourning. Misao had wanted to leave right then and not spend another minute separated from her son, but it seemed he was out on a mission with his team and not due back for a while. The time allowed her to actually think about her words and just how hard getting her son back would be. She had never met the Kyuubi container, as he never needed flowers, and that was her passion after retiring as a Junin, but the hate-filled words of her customers were often conversation between customers at the shop. When the boy had begun pulling pranks, the latest one would always seem to be discussed among the townspeople. A lot of damage had been dealt to her little boy in his life, and she honestly didn't know if he would accept anyone as his family or trust someone not to hurt him. Those thoughts had actually brought a fresh batch of tears to the woman. There was a fair chance her son didn't want her. Ino's mind. She was lost, floating in a thick violet-covered mist with no true sense of direction or time. Hours, perhaps even days may have passed, but Ino truly couldn't discern it. The only sound was the gentle wind and the sound of a child sobbing that she was drawing closer to each second. Slowly the mist cleared away and Ino found herself in a rundown room with rotted floors and peeling walls. A single bed was the only real furniture, and even it had seen better days. Ino swore amongst the dirt on it. Dried blood was also caked on. The moonlight shined in through a dirty window, revealing a tattered and ragged blanket with numerous holes wrapped around a huddled form. Ino moved closer until she could see a shivering blonde face with tears running down his eyes. The child looked so cold and the blanket was pulled tight around him, trying to coax just a little more heat into his body. He was crying and Ino could see blood flowing from many wounds covering the child's 4-year-old body. A loud pounding was heard at the door before an annoyed voice shouted inside. "Shut up in there, monster, or I will take away that blanket and leave more than a few bruises this time." I'm sorry. Please don't hit me again." The boy croaked out pitifully, as if he said that phrase often, causing Ino to see red. "Hey, how dare you hurt a little kid like that? I can't stand bullies," she yelled, but it seemed the child didn't hear her at all. Why? Why do they hate me? Why don't I have any parents? Why do I have to stay in this orphanage? The child asked, sitting up and looking out the window. The blonde kunoichi, finally getting a look at the boy, was able to figure who she was looking at. The blonde child had wide blue eyes and was dressed in a white shirt with a red spiral on it, almost like a quarantine marking to alert all others around him. He also wore a pair of dark blue shorts, at least one size too big for his thin frame. Naruto, she spoke, and the world around her flashed violet. Shaking her head to clear away the cobwebs, Ino found herself at the playground she used to play at when she was a kid. She was floating next to Naruto, who sat on a swing, a foot dangling from either side. Ino looked around and spotted herself not too far away playing with some local children wearing a bright smile. Naruto was watching them with envious and sad eyes. The adults sitting nearby were shooting him glares every few seconds, as if his mere existence near their children was a sin. The blonde seemed pinned in place by those looks, like a butterfly about to be collected. Why doesn't he go and play with them? Ino wondered, floating next to lonely child. A little boy got up from the group and started towards Naruto, seemingly intent on asking him to join them. Hope flared in his blue eyes as the child got closer, hope that was dashed when his mother suddenly picked him up and glared harshly at Naruto. "I want you to stay away from that boy, he's nothing but trouble," his mother ordered, and sent the boy back to his friends. "We were all told that at some point by our parents, or in my case someone else's parents." Why was Naruto singled out like that? If I remember right, this is before he even started pulling pranks. Again the world changed with a flash of violet. "Little monster, we're gonna make you pay for what you did." Ino looked around as the flash cleared and found two Chunin beating on a 6-year-old Naruto. One was a heavy-set male and was crushing Naruto's left hand under his booted foot. The other, a lanky boy, was kicking the blonde in the ribs and chest. "Hey you jerks, leave him alone, he's just a little kid. Are you listening to me?" Ino tried to punch the heavy, only to watch her fist pass harmlessly through him. These must be his memories, but why am I watching them? She found herself in the blonde cantainer's apartment. Though she had never seen it personally, it looked 10 times better than the crummy room he had at the orphanage. Naruto had his knees pulled up to his chest, crying, the full moon's light making his tears shine like diamonds. There was so much pain and loneliness in those sobs that it tore her heart asunder. Ino watched him slowly lift his right hand up, holding a new kunai just at eye level. Tears stopped and his body shuddered once before seeming to calm down. He began to turn the weapon over and over in his hand, looking at every angle of the blade. Smiling a true and contented smile, he raised the kunai high and exposed his throat by tilting his head. Ino tried to shout out something, anything to dissuade the gentle soul from a suicide, but no sound reached him. The instrument of his death began to descend slowly to pale tender flesh of throat, and the blonde kunoichi held her breath as the seconds ticked by. Suddenly the kunai was caught by the ring with an old wrinkly finger. Ino watched in awe as Naruto tugged and pulled, desperate to get the kunai down, but it was useless against the robed figure. "Naruto-kun, what do you think you're doing?" the wise elderly voice of the Sandaime Hokage asked. "I'm doing what everyone in this village wants," he fired back, his voice loud but broken. "Are you just going to give up and take the easy way out? Don't talk to me about easy. Just because you're the only person who doesn't glare at me doesn't mean you understand what I am going through, Oji-san. No, I admit I have no idea how hard it must be and must have been for you these past 6 years, but I also know that death won't gain you the acknowledgement you desire. It has to be better than this, and maybe I'd even get to see my parents finally." Naruto just seemed desperate. "Do you want to see them knowing you gave up without a fight, Naruto-kun? What am I supposed to do then? Take this kunai and forge your own path until you reach your dreams," Sarutobi stated, and offers the boy his weapon back. "I can't be a ninja, you have to be super strong or from some clan in order to become one. You start tomorrow." "What? That's why I came here, Naruto-kun, to tell you that starting tomorrow you begin the Ninja Academy. I want you to grow stronger and make friends with those your own age." "I can really go there? You're not just fooling me? I'll have a ninja escort you in the morning and show you to your class." Naruto nodded and looked down. Sandaime smiled and ruffled the boy's hair before rising to leave. As he exited, Ino floated closer and watched Naruto turn determined eyes out to the moon. Taking the kunai, he shoved it into his right palm, cutting a deep gash into the flesh. Blood flowed, but the blonde made no sound or shed a tear. "I swear on this kunai knife that I won't ever cry again." I will reach my dream and become Hokage of this village so that everyone will acknowledge me. I won't let anything else get me down or stop me, not until they look at me like a real person and not a monster," he declared. So that's why he always smiled back in the academy no matter what went wrong. His pranks must have been some kind of training, that's why he did it, not just for stupid attention. Ino found she was in the academy. The entire class was laughing at a mistake Naruto had made on a question they had heard, and it sounded easy. She blinked though when in Naruto's memories it was a Junin level question. Ino also noticed that the green-haired instructor's hands were held up in a seal position. At that age none of them would have noticed it, but now Ino could recognize the main seal for genjutsu techniques. Let's see if you can get this one, Naruto-kun. What the best target when throwing a senbon needle from a height of 30 feet up against the wind and zero visibility? The blonde began writing, trying desperately to find an answer. After a minute the smirking teacher called on Sakura, who had her hand raised high. "The leader of a village is a Kage and our village is led by the Hokage," she answered. "Correct, Sakura-chan. I am glad Naruto-kun's lackluster performance is not rubbing off on the rest of you." This of course caused everyone to laugh at the blonde once more. I remember that day, but why would the instructor do something so horrible to Naruto so often? If I think back, Naruto never actually got a question right until Iruka-sensei became our teacher. The blonde Kunoichi was getting annoyed with all the violet flashes and watched as Naruto failed his graduation test, then sat outside the academy watching families congratulate and celebrate. Ino could see it in his eyes, that loneliness and depression. The moment passed though when Mizuki came upon him and convinced him to steal the forbidden scroll. She was dragged along as he took the precious technique scroll and learned the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. In a few hours the Yamanaka girl watched as Iruka arrived, and then came her final truth to learn. Ino watched with wide eyes as Iruka protected Naruto from a deadly attack from Mizuki, gaining numerous kunai wounds in the process. "It's impressive that you found him," Mizuki commented from his perch in a nearby tree. Iruka picked himself up off the ground and pushed Naruto behind him. "I see, so that's what's going on," Iruka declared, glaring at the other Chunin. Mizuki ignored him, turning his attention to Naruto instead. "Naruto-kun, give me the scroll," he ordered. "Ah, hey, what's going on here?" Naruto asked. He stumbled a few steps away from Iruka, looking confused between the pair. "Naruto, don't give him the scroll even if you die. It is filled with forbidden jutsu and Mizuki was only using you to get it," Iruka explained while watching his former assistant. "I'll tell you the truth, Naruto-kun, about why the entire village hates you. You see, a law was created 12 years ago, a rule for everyone that something is kept from you and the younger generation." "Mizuki, don't. About me? What is it?" he asked desperately, wanting to know why he was hated. Ino stood by, curious as well. "Iruka and everyone have been lying to you. The Hokage decreed what no one of the older generations is to reveal to you and your generation, and the following generations, about the fact that you are nine-tailed demon fox. The Kyuubi no Kitsune, that attacked Konoha 12 years ago." "Naruto!" Ino screamed as she suddenly sat up in her hospital bed, her eyes wide. Road, path. Kakashi was silently beginning to wonder if maybe making Naruto walk with them, instead of going on ahead, was such a good idea. The quartet that made up Team 7 had left Wave the day before after being the first set of people to use the finished bridge. The blonde genin of the squad had been unable to stay near the crowd for long as the multitude of thoughts were like a crushing vice on his head. All seemed to be going well after that until the silver-haired Junin noticed a small twitch developing in Naruto's right eye. When they made camp that night he had asked about it only to be given a glare in return before said student stomped off to sleep 100 yards from the group. Even now the young ninja was walking far behind the team in a vain attempt to tune out whatever thoughts were bothering him. I wonder what is annoying him so much. I would think Naruto-kun would take this opportunity to learn more about his teammates. He though while continuing to read his book. Why is the Dobi slowing us down like this? He must be tired from sneaking off last night to work on some sort of secret jutsu or that special skill Kakashi-sensei told us about. Sooner or later he will have to use that jutsu he used to kill those two in Wave, and then I can copy everything with my Sharingan and use it to kill Itachi. Power like that doesn't belong in the hands of an idiot like Naruto. Sasuke thought, looking back to the unusually quiet loudmouth of the group. Sasuke-kun is cool and cute, nothing like Naruto Baka. I swear if he doesn't hurry up I am going to kill him. Sakura thought, glaring at the supposed weak link of the team. Yap pummeled the baka into the ground. Inner Sakura added, I have to get stronger and kill Itachi. Sasuke-kun is the greatest. Better than any other guy and he's all mine. Kakashi blinked as he spotted Naruto sneaking up behind Sakura, his hands poised to wring her neck. When the pink-haired Kunoichi looked back he put on an innocent look that was offset by the nasty twitch in his eye. A minute passed by before he started towards Sasuke with a broken tree branch he'd picked up from the ground, held up like a baseball bat. Calm down Naruto-kun, it can't be that bad. Kakashi thought, trying to lighten the blonde's mood. The sudden wave of killing intent coming off Naruto and the severe eye twitch answered the Junin's question. Kakashi's sweat dropped and muttered about short-fused blonde genins. In Konoha, Ino chose that moment to sneeze. So Dobi, how did you kill Zabuza's partner on the bridge and the Gato guy? Sasuke asked. I don't want to talk about it, Teme. He responded with a glare at the Uchiha survivor. Baka, don't talk like that to Sasuke-kun. He just asked you a question. Geez, I thought you liked to brag whenever you did something right. Sakura yelled at him for daring to call Sasuke a bastard. Then he shouldn't ask stupid questions. Naruto snapped back, his nerves frayed for the constant annoyance of hearing all the thoughts of his teammates. Sakura was taken aback by the tone, as her blonde teammate had never once replied to her with such anger. Maybe you should stop being a ninja, Dobi, if killing two nobodies upset you this much. Sasuke advised with sarcasm. The comment had barely finished leaving his lips when suddenly Sasuke felt like a battering ram struck his chest, sending him flying backwards from the impact. Sakura was by his side within a second, checking and fawning over the brooding boy. Naruto was glaring at the Uchiha, a ring of violet visible around each of his pupils. Sakura was about to berate the blonde for not showing any respect or helping their downed teammate when a hand covered her mouth. Looking the side, she spotted Kakashi standing there and shaking his head in a negative gesture even if he offered her no explanation. I may have made a slight miscalculation with this situation. The silver-haired Junin thought, watching the blue-eyed genin. How did the Dobi do that? I didn't sense any chakra or see him move. I have to know what he did so I can use it to kill Itachi. Naruto's eye twitched as he finally lost it. Shut up. If I hear you say Itachi one more time, I'm going to show you what I did to them on the bridge. I don't care about what you have with that guy. But if he could hear you, he would kill himself rather than hear your goddamn rant again. Sasuke's eyes threatened to pop out from shock and surprise at the blonde's declaration of his thoughts. Sakura pushed their sensei's hand away from her mouth and prepared to give Naruto a piece of her mind and possibly her fist. However, before she could utter a syllable, Naruto anticipated her actions and began speaking first. And you, do you even have a single thought in your head that isn't about Sasuke? Kami, it's like listening to a broken record repeat over and over. All you do is praise him and belittle me. You're no better than the rest of the village. And what is it with that second annoying voice in your head? She's worse than you. Behind Naruto, a branch suddenly snapped off from its tree before falling to the ground. Turning away from the slack-jawed pair, Naruto began stomping ahead at a fast pace, trying to force his emotions back down before he hurt someone. In all honesty, he had considered the two friends and, to hear what they truly thought about him, coupled with their one-track minds, he simply lost it. The blonde supposed that hoping for friends was simply another dream of his. That could never come true. Like always though, he banished those thoughts into a corner of his mind and continued jogging ahead. A good bowl of ramen from Ichiraku's would soothe him and make him forget this episode, he concluded. Kakashi watched the boy move ahead alone. His switching from anger and back to normal was far quicker than a normal person's would have been. The encounter could have gone easily into something far worse, and it only served to prove that they needed to get Naruto to the Hokage as quickly as possible. At that pace he should get back to the village in a few minutes. Why do I get the feeling I am missing something though? I mean, tons of people, all of whom hate Naruto-kun, watching him come back, alone and thinking, oh shit, Sasuke, Sakura, if I'm not waiting for you two at the gate, I will meet both of you tomorrow at our training field. He called to them before chasing off after the fox container. Hospital. Ino sighed as she sat up in her hospital bed. Her room was empty now as her parents had gone for a walk, dragging her friends and sensei along. in order to give her some breathing room and a few minutes peace to regain her calm after waking. The memories she had gleaned from the vision of Naruto, as unlike dreams, in which one could only grasp quickly fading flashes, this felt real, tangible, and she could recall every scene, and every emotion with crystal-like clarity. A part of her wished it was a dream and that no one had ever suffered like that, but she knew deep down in her heart, she had witnessed parts of his life. The final memory in particular. It kept replaying in her mind, haunting her current thoughts. Mizuki's declaration had shattered her carefully ordered image of the world to its foundation. It drew together all the pieces together of the puzzle that is Naruto's existence, and cleared up just why Naruto had suffered the scorn, hate and indifference of the village for his entire life. Ino didn't believe for a moment that the loud-mouthed blonde was a real demon. There was too much innocence and kindness in those eyes, despite of all what he had gone through. A true demon would never tolerate even a fraction of the abuse and hate heaped over him like Naruto has. If he truly were the Kyuubi, we would have all died years ago. She thought with a sigh. A pulse seemed to run through her mind, causing her eyes to dilate and glaze, becoming unfocused. Ino suddenly brought her hands up to take her head and slammed her eyelids closed. Sorrow and pain were echoing through her mind, along with a feeling of hundreds of eyes glaring at her in hatred. Inoichi and Misao were making their way back to their daughter's room. They had sent the rest of Team 10 to their homes, so they could rest and visit Ino tomorrow. Inoichi was carrying a plate of mochi for his little girl, in hopes of cheering her up. As the pair neared Ino's room, the sound of quiet sobbing reached their ears. Without hesitation, both shot forward, throwing open their daughter's room's door. Ino sat on her bed with her knees pulled up against her chest, her head leaning against them and her hands pressing tightly against the sides of her head. Tears of pain rolled down from her tightly shut eyes. Sobbing gradually changed to whimpering as the pair watched their little girl shudder and shiver. Trained nin ears did not fail to hear her whispered words, though they came out in a broken tone. Please, please stop hurting him. Please stop it. He doesn't deserve it. Please stop it. Stop it, stop it, stop it. The volume of her voice had slowly risen to finally become a screeching scream, her blue eyes opening wide, bearing a ring of ethereal violet in each. The glass in her window suddenly shattered, blowing outwards, and anything not nailed down was flung from its resting place in the room. A metal pan next to her bed was embedded in a wall, losing any identifiable shape. Inoichi was able to hold his ground, but it felt like if he had been punched in the gut by his old teammate Shuza. Misao didn't look any better, but pushed forward to draw her crying and frightened daughter into a hug. Shush, it's okay, Ino-chan. Misao cooed, trying to calm the young blonde down before she hurt herself. Mom, what's happening to me? Why am I seeing and feeling all of this? Why did I see Naruto's memories and feel so much emotional pain from him just now? Ino asked, clinging to her mother. Misao turned her shock-filled eyes towards Inoichi, who was even more surprised than her. Inoichi's eyes suddenly widened as his mind flashed with a possible explanation of what was happening. Truth be told, such things weren't expected to emerge in his clan for 4 to 5 centuries at best. Hell, this wasn't expected to appear for a millennia, in the general opinion of the clan. And now both of his children, as he had the inkling that Ino's outburst was certainly linked to Naruto, were displaying something only dreamed of for the Yamanaka clan: psionics. I need a doctor. Inoichi's line of thought was completely derailed by the shouting voice Hitaki Kakashi calling for a medic. The silver-haired Junin was supposed to be on a mission, though, with his genin Team 7, in which his son was placed in. Things suddenly clicked into place and Inoichi felt a cold shiver pass through his body and quickly excused himself to seek out the usually laid-back ninja of Konoha. As he turned to go, Inoichi spotted Kakashi moving past the room with a pair of nurses pushing an occupied stretcher. Lying on the stretcher, unconscious and with a pained and extremely tired look fixed in his face, was Naruto. He moved to follow them, leaving Misao to help Ino. Hokage's office. Sandame reread the emergency report Kakashi had sent to him about the mission in Wave Country. The message had cleared 1 or 2 things up for the wizened Hokage, but also brought to bear another mystery. Considering the nature of the problem, Sandame expected Team 7 back within a few hours, being behind the messenger dog by half a day. He was about to call on Naomi and have her inform the gates that he was to be alerted the moment Kakashi's team returned, when suddenly the doors burst open and a male chunin rushed in. "Hokage-sama, there's something going on," he announced, catching his breath. "What do you mean?" 10 minutes ago Hitaki Kakashi came running past the gates. One of the guards followed him and found him standing over Uzumaki Naruto, who seems to have fainted in the street. He was last spotted on the rooftop sprinting for the hospital. "Naomi-chan, inform anyone that comes looking for me that I am at the hospital," he ordered and walked from the office without another word to anyone. Room 24C. Inoichi slipped into the darkened room once the nurses had left and looked around the private room. The room had light blue walls and a few pictures of nature hung for decor. A television was placed in an entertainment center facing the bed. The room also had a small couch and 2 chairs in it for people who might be visiting. It was widely known that room 24C was only used for Naruto by order of the Hokage. It had been a frequent place of visit for him, since the first assassination attempt when he was 3 years old. Sadly, the only visitors Naruto usually got were Amino Iruka and the Hokage. This is the one place in all of Konoha that Naruto is safe. Not one doctor or nurse has even glared at him. Some of them seem overly worried. It seems I need to look more into his life, Inoichi thought, closing the door. "Inoichi-san, what brings you here?" Kakashi asked from his place leaning against the wall. "How is he?" the blonde asked with a concerned tone, causing the silver-haired man some confusion. "It's quiet here, he seems to have calmed down. So I think he's just sleeping for now," he replied, looking to his student. The overly pained and contorted look was gone, replaced by a serene and peaceful face. "What happened to him?" Inoichi asked, though already fearing he already knew the answer. "That for the moment is something only the Hokage is allowed to know about, Inoichi-san. You can give your report now then," spoke the third as he entered the room, pushing the door closed behind him. "I will stay behind and listen if you don't mind, Hokage-sama," Inoichi said in respect and watched the man nod in response. "Why would you want to, Inoichi-san? It seems you're taking a bit of an interest in my student," Kakashi asked, eyeing both men. "It concerns him, Kakashi-kun. After all, Naruto-kun is his son," Sarutobi stated with a smile. Kakashi's visible eye widened at hearing that, and had he been reading his book he most likely would have dropped it. In all honesty, he had no idea who Naruto's parents were, as he knew his sensei the fourth wasn't seeing anyone close to that time. During his time in Anbu he'd been assigned to watch over the blonde once or twice and had grown slightly attached to the prankster. What?" he was able to say finally. "Yes, it is a bit of a shock to hear. I only discovered the truth a few days ago as I was searching through the archives. Arashi-kun, your sensei, wrote the entire story down, unable to leave the truth buried with him. It seems the night Kyuubi attacked, a pair of twins were born in Konoha, and lacking any other choice, the Yondaime chose the male to contain the fearsome demon fox. That boy's name was Yamanaka Naru, or as he is known now as Uzumaki Naruto. Only the ramen-obsessed clueless baka of Arashi would pick out a name in the final moments of life for a child, belonging to his favorite ramen topping of all the damn things in the world," Inoichi stated with a bit of sadness and irony. "Now that we all know the story, your report, please, Kakashi-kun." Hillside. Nara Shikamaru, lazy genius and shadow user, lay on the grass with his hands behind his head watching the clouds go by. Next to him, sitting cross-legged, was Choji, an open bag of chips being depleted by the second. This was usually as good as it got for the pair, but both were still worried about their friend and teammate Ino. For Shikamaru, getting his piece wasn't half as fun if the blonde Spitfire wasn't here to match wits and argue with him. "Gra, stupid Naruto baka," a voice screamed out below them, and both boys turned, expecting to see the blonde ponytail of their friend. Instead, they saw long pink hair attached to a fuming Sakura who was viciously beating a training dummy, all the while cursing her blonde teammate's name with several colorful words. "Punch. How dare Naruto baka to yell at Sasuke-kun like that. Kick. Yeah, where does that idiot get off yelling at our one true love? Punch combo. Then he accused me of being obsessed with Sasuke-kun. Spin kick. Yeah, and I am not annoying. Spinning roundhouse kick. Oh, when I get my hands on him. Punch. Hell yeah, grind him into dust." Shikamaru and Choji watched Sakura pull her hand back and punch the dummy one final time. The dummy would never be usable again, even with a lot of repair work. Dusting her dress off, Sakura smiled dangerously and walked off whistling a happy tune. What do you think she was doing? Choji asked. Trying to surpass Ino in how troublesome a girl can be maybe. Shikamaru suggested. Think Naruto pissed her off on their last mission? TCH, it's too troublesome to worry about, we'll hear it sooner or later from Ino. Hospital. Ino stared at her parents with wide eyes as they finished talking. The usually loud girl was stunned into silence by their words. Slowly the shock was being washed away as her mind accepted the new information and began working through it all. Looking down, her hands curled into fists, bunching up the bedsheet, and thought about all she had seen before she chose to speak up finally. I want to see him. I want to see my Oni-san. The words were simple and spoken in a low tone. Ino, honey, he's unconscious right now and you still need your rest. Misao responded soothingly. Ino looked up with narrowed eyes full of determination. Pushing the cover away, she slowly climbed out of the bed and moved to collect her clothes. Misao was about to stop her when Inoichi placed a hand on her arm and shook his head. She wants to see him, and I think in a way Naruto is calling her to him. They've been separated long enough, let her go. Let's all go and be there for him as a family when he wakes up. He spoke with a smile. Ino finished tying her hair back into its usual ponytail and then went about wrapping bandages around her stomach and legs. That feeling was back, the one from before she collapsed, and if her father was right, it meant Naruto was in some sort of danger. The hospital was eerily quiet as the trio made their way to the 5th floor and Naruto's room. As they got closer, the more what a feeling of dread and foreboding seemed to fill Ino, making her move all the quicker down the halls. She stopped suddenly though as pain surged up through her elbow, engulfing her entire right arm. Grabbing her arm with her left, she gasped as if someone had begun choking her. Physically she was fine, but mentally the pain was as real to her as it must be for the person suffering it. Realization struck Ino and her temper flared, allowing her to push the pain away and charge down the hall, sprinting the last bit to Naruto's room and shoving the door open. The smell of fresh blood struck her head on, along with the sound of a boy gasping and gagging for air. A man hidden by shadows was standing over Naruto, choking him with large hands. The blonde's eyes were open wide in fear, a ring of violet shining around each pupil. A kunai was lodged in his right elbow, the wound bleeding profusely, staining the bed in a river of crimson. One of Naruto's eyes slowly rolled away from his attacker and focused on Ino, and she was suddenly struck with the horrid realization that he expected her to just stand there and watch like many other people must have done to him in his past. He's grown used to people watching him being hurt. Grown used to people watching someone trying to hurt and kill him, and not move a finger for him. The fear in his eyes, it's gone now. Does Naruto really want to die? She thought, and then growled, her fist clenching at her side. Let him go, she yelled and rushed the attacker, tackling him away from the other blonde's bed. Inoichi and Misao arrived a heartbeat later to see Ino thrown away into a wall by the man, who stood back up, pulling out a shuriken and sending it flying at his target. As maternal instincts started taking over, Misao blurred out of sight from sheer speed and caught the deadly projectile between her fingers. Inoichi blurred as well, only to reappear and nail the aggressor with a punch to his jaw, drawing blood and loosening more than a few teeth. The man was finally revealed to be a hefty Chunin, what Inoichi recognized for being widely known to being one of the most problematic and weak Chunin in the village. Catching an incoming kick from the bastard, he snapped his hand out, striking him in the throat and following up with a roundhouse kick that finished his opponent off. Picking the bastard of a Chunin for his clothes up, he seriously considered killing him outright in the sight, but chose instead to leave him for Ibiki and his fun air interrogation sessions. Anbu suddenly stormed the room, followed by Kakashi and the Hokage. All eyes fell on the man that Inoichi held and passed to a bare-masked Anbu member. Ino was finally helped back onto her feet, but her shoulder would most defiantly need attending to. What's going on? Everyone turned to stare at the blonde-haired genin that was still losing blood on his bed. Quickly Kakashi set himself for the second time on the day, for a doctor to help his injured and prone student. Naruto bit his lips, and couldn't avoid starting to moan as thoughts from all around the room filled his head, and the resonating thoughts from the village floated just at the edge of his mind, bringing his spitting headache back in full force. Noticing his discomfort, Sandaime ordered the Anbu out of the room and watched Naruto breathe a sigh of relief at the lessening of some pain. The last thoughts Naruto caught came from three people in the room and surprised him before the need for sleep went out. "I'll protect you, Oni-san. You will not be alone anymore. My little Naru, you look so fragile right now, like glass." Maybe I should have told them he can hear our thoughts. "Sleep well, Naru, we'll be watching over you, my son." The Sandaime Hokage sat behind his desk, with Kakashi sat in front of him, deeply immersed in thought. Sarutobi knew that right now, the copy nin felt conflicted about his genin team, and at a total loss of how to react to the current situation with Naruto. The blonde had been moved into a large cabin owned by his clan, that was located outside the village, by stunned to the news Yamanaka clansmen after the attack, but he had yet to awaken. Inoichi had explained more deeply his conclusions about Naruto and Ino's situation, and what he had been quickly planning to help his children, which was why Sandaime had called Kakashi to meet both. "I understand what you were thinking of entering your team in the upcoming Chunin exams." He started with a slight smile on his face. "I think they're ready, if I can help Naruto to get his new abilities under control in time." Kakashi answered, and saw the Hokage's side to his last statement. "It would appear from what Inoichi tells me, that this new ability has been expected by the Yamanaka clan, but it wasn't foreseen to manifest for another century at best. Also, it should have been far longer before it appeared on the scale of power that it has apparently manifested in Naruto-kun. Ino is also displaying signs of developing this ability, but it seems less advanced than Naruto's own gift, and thankfully easier to control." The aged man stated, "So when Naruto called on the Kyuubi's chakra, it must have unlocked this ability. However, it doesn't explain how Ino awakened it at such a short time after her brother, as the demonic chakras shouldn't affect her at all." Kakashi added in, "Well, honestly, we don't have any true way of knowing how this happened, but it happened, and we must deal with the situation at the best of our capacities." Sarutobi said with finality, "I'm sure between Inoichi-san and me they will both be fine. Naruto-kun is strong. Anyone who could survive what he has will pull through this well. This might even improve his skills in a high degree. I am sure there are some jutsus he could make use of that I know." "Kakashi-kun, I'm glad for your worry, however, it is my decision that from now until the day of the Chunin exams, Naruto will be removed from Team 7 and you will focus on the training of your other students." The one-eyed young man looked up sharply at that, his eye narrowing ever so slightly. "Are my skills as his sensei being called into question, Hokage-sama?" "No, but if you wish for Naruto to compete in the Chunin exams, then drastic measures must be taken to ensure he will be able to perform in optimal condition, because his abilities require him to undergo an intensive training regime focused in control and exploring the best use of his new skills. What it will require the constant dedication of several teachers and Inoichi, along with a medic nin of the Yamanaka clan, to be certain that anything that happens won't be harmful or bad to Naruto and his sister. I cannot ask you to ignore your other students to focus solely on one, and for now Sasuke must be taught to use his Sharingan. I have no doubt that Naruto will be angry for this, but if anything that shows he trusts you to teach him, an honor very few hold. May I then request to aid in his training during my free time? I will allow that if you think you can keep up with your exuberant student stamina." Sandaime laughed, lighting his pipe. "I think I can handle it. Now, if there is nothing else, Hokage-sama?" Seeing the wizened man shake his head, Kakashi left the room. Sandaime thought also in the situation what was developing in the Yamanaka clan, as he knew that almost the entire clan, after the surprise passed, would react with a unified and explosive outrage, to what they would pretty much consider an absolute betrayal and offense for part of Yondaime to the clan. And once the Akamichi and Nara got wind of this, they would follow the Yamanaka in this, as the three clans were generally considered as a single coalition, with the Nara being the mind, the Akamichi the body, and the Yamanaka the soul of their alliance. And this would fall on Jiraiya too. Frankly, he pitied his student when he came for his researching soon. They wouldn't kill him, but the Yamanaka, especially the females, were quite creative when it came to payback. Well, better him than me, thought Sandaime. Yamanaka Estate. In the north extreme of Konoha are several large parcels of land, owned and used by several clans of the village hidden in the leaves. Among these areas nestled near the clan homes of the Nara and Akamichi, were the lands that belonged to the Yamanaka clan. The grounds were immaculate, meant to inspire serenity and peace, to make it easier teaching their bloodline jutsus. Training areas were specified for those perfecting or learning taijutsu skills. The most notorious piece of the land, however, was the multi-story home resting in the center of the lands. Unlike the Hyuga, who divided their family into either branch or main house members, the Yamanaka were one unified clan. This was easy to see as they worked and trained together without harsh words or glares, unless of course the legendary temper of their blood was aroused. Whether they lived in the compound or not, it mattered little, as often the entire family was called together for simple dinners or parties, meant to remind everyone of their family bond. The current head of the Yamanaka clan was Yamanaka Saya, a retired elite Junin ninja and representative of the clan in the village council. He stood tall at 6 feet. His once bright blonde hair had turned silver with age, yet his eyes remained the same calculating blue. Inoichi sat before him, with the elders of the clan to either side of them. "You are absolutely sure that the boy shows all of the abilities of the fully developed Kekkei Genkai?" Saya asked calmly, even as the elders mutter amongst themselves about the news. "Yes, according to his sensei and my own observations, he shows every sign of the fully developed Kekkei Genkai. That is why I am here to get the help what only our clan can provide to my son." Inoichi replied, "The biggest problem you will face is teaching the child how to control his new abilities and protect his mind. If the fourth hadn't betrayed us in such a fashion, he would have learned this at a young age, just as all children of our line like his sister does," Saya stated, causing a growing uproar of tempers at the single mention of the Yondaime. Silence. The shouted word from the family head quieted the uprising ranting going on around him and drew all eyes back to his face. The records will be corrected to show what Yamanaka Naru lives, and along with his twin sister Yamanaka Ino are listed as the first living bearers of our long-awaited Kekkei Genkai. It is also my decision that if he can give a full form and structure to the theorized genjutsu, ninjutsu and taijutsu styles, what will use our Kekkei Genkai, and passes the trials, what we will apply to him at the end of his training, that Yamanaka Naru will become the chosen clan head heir of our family." Nods of agreement were seen all around and Inoichi smiled. "I would not let out a sigh of relief yet, Inoichi-kun. Given the way Konoha has treated him, I expect what Naru will not be so receptive to things. You'll have much work ahead of you, just as we all do, if the boy is to ever accept his family and heritage. I know that is why I have asked for help in training him and Ino before the Chunin exams. If all else fails, my son will at least be prepared to continue his life." The blonde Junin replied, "Who is the Hokage getting to help?" "Hokage's office. Maeda Guy, Rock Lee, and Morino Ibiki. These are 3 people that I've arranged to help in the intensive training of Naruto," Sandame stated, speaking to the woman standing before him. "What's this have to do with me then, Hokage-sama?" she asked, quirking a brow at the aged leader. "In order to secure the help of Guy and his student, I had to make sure that his other students received acceptable training. Neji isn't a problem, as he will be working with his family until the Chunin exam, but I would like that you personally handle his last student, Tenten." "You want me to teach some brat?" the woman quipped. Tenten is a weapons specialist as well as a very determined kunoichi, but her current file shows that she lacks endurance, and her array of techniques needs to be diversified. "You are the best kunoichi in the village for the job. You think that she can tolerate my training? If she does, Tenten will be better for the experience, and if not, she will still have learned something at least. Fine, whatever, I'll teach the little girl some moves, if she can keep up. Just have her meet me near training field 44 tomorrow. I'll test her then to check what I have to work with. Do try to return the girl to his team in one piece, physically and mentally. Understood, Anko? You're no fun, Hokage-sama." Mitarashi Anko pouted, something that made the Hokage shudder inwardly, and turned to leave the office, the purple hair on her head swishing just a bit, and her serpentine eyes gleaming with anticipation. She was going to enjoy this. Cabin. A small groan passed between barely parted lips, and bright blue eyes opened to gaze at the ceiling above. Sitting up slowly, Naruto stretched, feeling his muscles pop and crack from disuse. A gentle breeze caressed his face and blew a few strands of his blonde hair in front of his eyes, what roamed the sight where he was in that instant. The room was rather large, painted dark green with 2 beds and a pair of desks. Looking to the open window to his left, he saw an ocean of trees and nature as far as his eyes could see. "Where in the hell am I?" he asked himself before grabbing his head in pain, memories rushing back to him. He was sleeping, and for once since the fight with Haku it was quiet. The sweet numbness of unconsciousness was ripped away, however, when a stabbing pain burned in his right arm. Slowly opening his eyes, he felt hands wrap around his throat and begin to squeeze, robbing him of air. Fear coursed through him even more so when he found his arm bleeding from a kunai jammed in it. The man was screaming at him both verbally and mentally, making it sound like two people instead of one. He said what he, the demon, was to blame for his weakness, for the loss of his father and uncle. The door was thrown open by someone, but the blonde put little faith in anyone helping him. A darker part of his mind made itself known, as it always did when the village came for him, and he waited, hoping on some level that this time someone would succeed in their vengeance on him. Turning one eye in the direction of the door, he spotted one of his former classmates, Ino. He thought was her name. She had hair just like his, and eyes that were of a similar shade of blue in a way, like if the young girl were calling to him, offering peace, but he knew, like many things in his life, such a promise of peace was simply his imagination. "Let him go," she yelled and rushed the attacker, tackling the man away from his bed. Why did she save me, and what do those thoughts I heard mean? He wondered mentally. The door to the room was then opened, breaking him of his confused thoughts and drawing his attention to his surroundings. Standing there with her hands on her hips watching him was Ino. Blinking at the smile on her face, he watched her walk closer to the bed and lean towards him. Both were completely still for a moment before Ino's eye twitched and she suddenly slammed her fist into the top of his head, making him fall back flat on the bed. "Ow, Ino, that hurt," he stated, rubbing his head and sitting back up. He stiffened when he felt her arms encircle him. The last thoughts before he passed out returning. "I'll protect you, Oni-san. You will not be alone anymore. My little Naru. You look so fragile right now, like glass." Maybe I should have told them he can hear our thoughts. "Sleep well, Naru. We'll be watching over you, my son." "Why were you thinking that?" Naruto asked, drawing the blue eyes of his fellow blonde up to him. The pain in his head was forgotten as his curiosity was piqued. "Because Baka Oni-san, what kind of sister would I be if I didn't keep you out of trouble?" Ino responded mentally in a matter-of-fact tone. What the hell is she talking about? He thought before Ino slapped the back of his head. "Don't curse in front of me, Baka." Naruto's eyes widened at her thoughts and the hit. "You heard me?" "Of course I did," she responded and then continued before he could comment. "Besides, you aren't worthless, trash, or a demon. You're a human, a wonderful person, and my twin brother." Breaking free of her arms, Naruto scooted away from Ino until his back touched the window sill. Bright blue eyes remained wide, just staring ahead to the blinking Yamanaka, that had just professed being related to him, denial and resentment flowing through him. Ino recovered quickly, recognizing the look she was receiving. "I'm not lying to you, Oni-san. You have a family, a sister, parents, and all the other relations that come with it. You can feel me, not just my thoughts but my soul, just like I can feel you. We're connected." "What are you saying? Stop joking with me, Ino. You know good and well that I'm an orphan." "Hell, even the Hokage knows that," Naruto said aloud, his eyes looking down. "There is no mention ever of an Uzumaki ever existing in Konoha. It was the name given to you for the Yondaime when he took you from the hospital to seal the Kyuubi into you." At the mention of the 9 tails, she watched her fellow blonde stiffen like a board. "She knows about the fox, Kami-sama. How many more know? What if the other kids our age or younger know as well? How much more can go wrong this week? No one else knows your secret. I promise it. The only reason I know is because I saw your memories." Iruka-sensei was right. You're not the Kyuubi, just Yamanaka Naru, which is your name, not the fish-paste whirlpool thing the fourth gave you. Not everyone is a bigot or thinks like Mizuki. I should know. I watched that Teme enjoy telling you about the fox in your memory. As much as he wanted to deny it, Naruto could sense the truth of her words and the comfort she offered him. A myriad of emotions passed through Naruto's mind as he digested these new developments. First was a weak denial, which soon disappeared, as he, even if Ino didn't think anything. He knew with certainty what she said was the truth, as he felt himself whole again, like if a piece of his own soul was finally back. It was quickly replaced with rage and depression as he had been denied such love from birth. The emotions continued to flow around him until they became too much and the floodgate what always hid his pain started to fully broke. It's true. It's true. I have a family. I'm not alone. They have not abandoned me. They don't see me as the demon. They recognize me, they want me. His happiness changed then, as he remembered something what haunted him from the day when he got the truth from Mizuki. As the last walls in his heart broke themselves, with a scream, he finally released something what tortured his soul from that day. Why? Why was I chosen by the Yondaime? Why is it I had to live without a family? Why did he have to hide why was, son of a bitch? Answer me, damn it. Why? And with that, a weeping Naruto threw himself into the embrace of his sister, who was crying, part in sadness for the suffering of his twin, and part on relief, as she felt Naru was finally free of a huge burden on his soul. The noise soon drew the attention to the acute ears of the other person currently in the house. Moving up the stairs silently, a pair of eyes leaned around the door frame to take in the scene before her. Misao fought down the urge to rush inside and take the embracing pair into her arms at the sight of the tears shining in the faces of her children, as the morning light bathed the twins in warm light. She was held in place though by the sight of Naruto with his hair falling around instead of pointing upwards in unruly spikes. The resemblance between the two was simply uncanny at the moment. Finally breaking free of her stupor, the mother of both Ino and Naru moved forward, wrapping her arms around them. She was saddened, but understanding when Naruto suddenly tensed up and looked at her with questioning and slightly fearful eyes. Who is this woman? He thought. Our mother, our cousin, Ino answered, hearing his mind over their link. Naruto didn't said anything, and just embraced Misao, as he wept without caring for the world for once. Misao wept also, even if she was smiling, and softly said, I have my baby boy back, and this time no one will part you from us, my little Naru. Training Field 2. Like many training fields open for use by ninja within Konoha, the Training Field 2 was positioned inside a clearing surrounded on all sides by forested woodlands and the ground covered in grass. Large logs and other dummies were set into the earth used for weapons training and taijutsu practice. It should be noted that most if not all of the logs that served as targets were impaled with any number of throwing weapons, and others sported large dents or missing sections from being struck. Standing in front of one of these logs, viciously pummeling it with punches and kicks, was an oddly dressed young man with black hair cut in the bull style and very bushy eyebrows along with black eyes. He was dressed in green spandex with his leaf forehead protector tied around his waist like a belt. Bandages wrapped around each of his arms served to complete his outfit. Leaning against a tree with no expression gracing his features was a boy with long black hair and pale skin, along with eyes that seemed to lack a pupil, though in actuality the pupil was just a slightly darker shade than the white of his eye, making it hard to tell if it was there or not. He was dressed in a white jacket and black pants with his forehead protector worn traditionally. Straddling a branch above the boy was a girl with brown eyes and hair pulled up into a pair of buns on top of her head. She was dressed in a white sleeveless Chinese-style shirt and black pants with black ninja sandals and a shuriken pouch on her right hip. Compared to the other two genin on her team, she by far seemed the most normal, but then again every target that was around her seemed to be filled with weapons of varying types, all of them deadly accurate. In a puff of smoke a fourth person appeared within the field around the genin. When the smoke cleared, it revealed it to be an older man in a Junin vest. The man wore green spandex under his vest and sported the same eyebrows and haircut as the younger spandex-clad boy, who could now be considered the older Mon's clone. Good morning, my adorable students. I, Maida Guy, Konoha's prideful green beast, have been given a very special assignment by our wise Hokage-sama to last until the Chunin exams, and thus have secured very special training for all three of my youthful students in my absence. He declared loudly to the trio. Two of the students secretly cheered for the time away from the insane Junin, but the third voiced his disappointment along with several gallons of tears. Guy-sensei, how can we prepare for the Chunin exams without your shining example to stoke the fires of our youthful spirits? We will never be ready without your excellent teaching, declared the spandex-clad clone of Maida Guy. Do not fret, my youthful Rock Lee, each of you will getting training best suited to prepare you for your coming trials. I have seen to it personally. The man explained and continued before another interruption could occur. Tenten, tomorrow you will report to Training Field 44, and begin instruction under the one of Konoha's Tokubetsu Junin. She is one of the strongest kunoichi in the village, and will help your springtime of youth to truly blossom. Neji, as you have often requested in the past, starting tomorrow until my mission is complete, You shall train in the Jiyukin under the watchful eye of your family, stroking the passionate flames of your youth into a blazing inferno." Tenten blinked then smiled while Neji just snorted. "What about me, Guy-sensei?" Rock Lee asked with enthusiasm. "You Rock Lee shall be aiding me in my task to return the youthful spirit to one of our fellow shinobi. We shall return this young man to his springtime of youth through training and hard work, and you shall gain a new sparring partner to help advance your skills in taijutsu as well." Guy explained with a smile light glinting off his teeth. "Guy-sensei. Lee. Guy-sensei. Lee. Guy-sensei. Lee." Neji and Tenten both sighed with sweat drops forming on the back of their heads as sensei and student entered into one of their usual fits of crying and hugging one another. The pair had plenty of time to gather any equipment they had laying around and calmly stroll away while the duo behind them continued with their embarrassing display. They really felt sorry for whoever would be receiving those two's help, and grateful for the respite from the maniac duo. Cabin. Naruto suddenly sneezed slightly from his place, sitting cross-legged on the grassy terrain that made up the front yard of the cabin he was currently staying in. Sitting in front of him was Yamanaka Inoichi, his father, he had to remind himself once again, who was in the process of trying to both verbally and mentally explain to him how to tune out or turn off his mind-reading ability. So far the results were far from stellar. "It's not something that can be forced, Naru-kun. You're not building a stone wall around your mind, instead, you're making something like a bubble, a semi-permeable one, that will protect your mind from thoughts you don't want to hear but also allow you to discern and listen when you want to, and in some cases, dive into someone's mind." The older blonde explained, and watched the young ninja close his eyes, as he concentrated again trying to do as instructed. A violet aura slowly encased his body as he focused on drawing out the power of his mind and spirit, while keeping both sets of energy separate from his physical energy as the mixing of them, with the far bigger amount of psionic energy on him, would only result in creating an unstable chakra release. Biting his lip in concentration, Naru drew the energy around him towards his head, and then attempted to pull it into his mind to create his shield. Feeling the aura become internal, he began to mold the power shaping it around the walls of his mindscape and then keep it in place without as much concentration. The wall was easily built but almost instantly cracks started to form along its surface forcing Naru to push even more of his energy into it to help repair the damage. Remember, don't force it, let it flow, like water from a stream, capable of rippling and taking impacts, but never allowing what impacts it to make it through. Think of it like gelatin, it resists anything that touches it, allowing that something to ripple across the surface losing its piercing power, while at the same time it can allow something to be absorbed or simply pass through it if the right force of push or pull is used. Inoichi explained, hoping a reference to food would aid his son. Naru focused once more, mentally staring at his wall, and began drawing power away from it, watching the solid violet become wavy-like yet no less vibrant. Melding it into place, he waited for the surface to crack or to simply hear Inoichi's thought because the shield wasn't thick enough, but neither either came. In fact, other than a few odd ripples going through the wall, nothing was happening at all. Opening his eyes, the young blonde blinked twice, marveling at the calm flowing through him and surprised to find the elder blonde smiling at him with something between pride and awe. Naru reveled in the attention for a full minute, before narrowing his eyes and focusing on his father, willing the barrier around his mind to allow him to hear the man's thoughts. "Testing 1 2 3, can you hear me?" Inoichi's thought came in loud and clear. "Wow, that is so cool." The legendary loudness of Uzumaki Naruto returned with the realization what he had just managed to do just after a few hours, finish the mental shield, what he was told might take weeks to forge. Of course, in the face of his explosion of elation and his victory dance, the barrier he just created collapsed. You have to stay calm, Naru-kun, or else you instinctually start calling on your energy and shattering the mind shield. I'm not saying you have to become an emotionless machine, but if you react too suddenly and extremely to something, then your kekkei genkei go haywire. The man admonished with a smile, knowing he would most likely have done the exact same thing. While even being a Junin, he was still a ninja, and getting something right always felt good. Sorry about that, guess I got a little excited," Naru said with a nervous laugh, rubbing the back of his head. "We all get excited and angry, especially in our family. I am just giving you a warning now. Put your shield back up so we can go to dinner. You have to get to bed early as you and Ino have special training starting tomorrow." A look of shock found its way onto Naru's face. But I have to meet my team tomorrow, he declared loudly, and the log to his left, with an axe resting in it, was suddenly engulfed in a violet aura and shattered into pieces, the axe flying toward the woods. Both Yamanaka males blinked at the event. Oh, okay. Being calm might be a good idea after all. The younger of two mused with wide eyes. Defiantly going to need this training, the elder of two announced, and both nodded their heads simultaneously. But that was so cool. Both suddenly yelled and fell into a fit of laughter. Misao smiled watching them from the window in the kitchen as she continued making dinner for the family of four. It was uplifting to her heart to know Naru accepted them as his family so easily. She understood that behind his eyes and those smiles of his were a certain level of guardedness, and it would only fade given time. Naru didn't trust anyone completely except a select few, but he was always willing to give a person or persons a chance, and this was theirs. No matter how you looked at it, Yamanaka Naru was smarter than anyone could ever understand. Next morning, Yamanaka Naru yawned as he walked towards a clearing about 10 minutes away from the cabin next to Ino, who looked about as tired as he felt after being rudely awakened before dawn so they could eat and shower in time to get to the start of their lessons. Whoever their sensei was, both Yamanaka twins had agreed to make their life as difficult as possible for setting such a ridiculous time. The rising sun slowly began to send trickles of light into the clearing and revealed a pair of green spandex-wearing ninja doing one-fingered push-ups, while spouting something youthful spirits. Ino shuddered next to him at the sight, while he blinked, wondering if eyebrows that big were even possible or if it were some sort of evil genjutsu. Using the time productively, he attempted to tap into the pair's thoughts and slowly opened up his barrier to their thoughts, only to scream and slam his mind barriers tight shut a second later before diving behind Ino, shaking terribly. "Naru Oni-san, what's wrong?" Ino asked, feeling the utter terror and revulsion coming from the boy. "Sunsets, waves, so many glittering teeth," he replied, screaming the last part out and alerting the two taijutsu specialists of their finally arriving. "Ah, good morning my adorable students, you are late, but I shall ignore it seeing the glowing flames of your youth. I am Maida Guy, Konoha's prideful green beast, and I shall be your instructor in the ways of taijutsu and your family's style," the Junin announced loudly. "And I, Rock Lee, Konoha's beautiful green beast, shall be training with you and aiding Guy-sensei. Let us reach the pinnacle of our springtime of youth together through hard work. If we fail, I shall do 10,000 laps around Konoha." Rock Lee continued, fire burning in his eyes. "Now to begin, we need to properly outfit you both." Guy was cut off by his two new students yelling at the same time. "No green spandex," was the mutual scream from the scared shitless twins. "Ah, but you have not earned the right to wear such things yet. No, we shall begin with weights to help you grow stronger and faster in the timeframe Hokage-sama has given us," he replied with a glittery smile before passing each a wrapped bundle, the sheer weight of which sent both blondes into the ground, creating a pair of craters. "Are you crazy? This will kill us," Naru shouted, though keeping his temper back enough to prevent his Kekkei Genkei from doing something nasty to his new sensei, even if he was slightly tempted. "Hard work can overcome anything, Naru-kun, even the supposed power of a genius. I have been told you were like me, a so-called dead last with a prodigy for a teammate. Do you wish to admit that his natural genius overcomes your skills? Do you wish to admit that he is your better?" Lee asked and watched the boy growl, ripping his bundle open. "Sasuke Teme is not better than I am, and I'll prove it even if I have to survive going through suicidal training from a pair of bushy-browed nutcases. I won't lose to him or need his help ever again, so bring on whatever you want because I won't fail. Neither Ino Onisan or I will back down," he stated with narrowed eyes filled with conviction. Next to him, Ino nodded and struggled back to her feet before ripping open her bundle. Inside each bundle were a pair of arm guards, shin guards, and a set of chest weights made to be worn under someone's clothing. While it was heavy, it was made in order to work a lot of the major muscle groups and at the same time not get in the way if worn during combat. Naru quickly set about putting his equipment on, while Ino retreated behind a tree in order to put her chest piece on. Each struggled to walk and move their arms as they waited for further instructions. "Good, you make me so proud, my new youthful students, but before you can begin training in your clan's Uriken, Ghost Fist, taijutsu style, you must first build your bodies up." Guy-sensei, I've never heard of that style and I have been training in my clan's techniques for years?" Ino asked, blinking at the mention of something she had never heard of before. This style of fighting can only be used by those who are unique like you and Naru-kun. In fact, you will be the first pair to ever actually use this fighting style, and its true nature shall forever be defined by the way you both use it and improve upon the theories behind it. Guy explained. Now let us begin our journey to true youthfulness by doing 1,000 push-ups, 1,000 sit-ups, and 25 laps around the forest. Then we can get to the real work by punching and kicking a log properly 10,000 times with each limb. The Junin orders to the shocked eyes of Ino and Naru, but also a cry of happiness from Lee. Guy-sensei, you're the best. We will surpass even the mighty Hyuga and Uchiha prodigies with youth-inspiring training. We will truly become geniuses of hard work. Lee declared, pumping his fist in the air. Maybe we should try to make a break for it? Naru asked, mentally knowing Ino would hear it. This is exactly the kind of training I've been waiting for. No way are we backing out now. Ino replied boldly. Great. I've lost her to the bushy brows. Next thing I'll find green spandex in the closet. I heard that. Ow. Naru thought as Ino delivered punishment for the spandex comment in the form of a smack into the back of his head. Training Field 44. Tenten whistled slightly as she walked around the fence in forested area that was Training Field 44, the Forest of Death. She was still waiting for her sensei to arrive and had decided to explore some. She was suddenly broken out of her thoughts though, when a pair of kunai flew past her face, cutting a pair of bloody lines across her cheeks. Welcome to hell, little girl, a sing-song and disturbingly cheery voice stated from the trees. All that was seen of her was a pair of serpentine eyes. Tenten only gulped, and a single thought burned in her mind before Anko started to test her in her very special way. I'm going to castrate Guy-sensei if I get out of this alive. Afternoon. Naru and Ino lay on the ground panting from exertion, their bodies covered by sweat and blood, which was all of them, and none of the training logs or lees. After they had completed Guy-sensei's insane training regimen, he had suggested they would cool down by having a taijutsu spar against Lee, who still seemed fresh despite the rigorous ordeal. In short version, the pair had lost horribly, even while utilizing their link to prepare coordinate attacks. Even with his weights on, Lee was way faster and stronger than they were. On your feet, scum, a voice ordered from the other side of clearing, drawing their eyes. A tall man with dark eyes, and a pair of long scars upon his face, with the Konoha forehead protector worn like a bandana covering the top of his head and wearing a black trench coat. What underneath showed what appeared to be the standard Anbu uniform along with boots instead of the normal ninja sandals. He glared coldly at them but didn't speak up again, though the tiny amount of killing intent he sent out was more than enough to get the duo up within a minute of fighting their new weights. My name is Morino Ibiki, head of the ANBU's Interrogation and Torture Division, and I will be teaching you how to deal with mental stress along with other little tricks about the workings of the human mind. Hokage-sama has set a lot of goals for the both of you, and it is my job to make sure you meet them, and you wouldn't like me if I failed. Any questions? No? Good, let's get started. Ino and Naru secretly wondered if the Hokage was out to get them. Evening. Naruto and Ino were trudging back to the cabin once Ibiki-sensei finished with them, which meant they had been close to mental breakdown or complete catatonia. The man was a sadistic bastard in Naru's mind, using elaborate word tricks and threats against Ino to force him into angry charges against him, which resulted in a failure for the exercise. Ino on the other hand had dealt more with his genjutsu as he raised frightening possibilities in her mind, which usually revolved around a decision or mission gone bad, resulting in the very graphic deaths of her loved ones. The pair stopped about 10 feet away from the cabin entrance when they spotted both their father and Kakashi seemingly waiting for them. The latter though seemed deeply engrossed in his orange book. Ino groaned, foreseeing more training when all she really wanted was a nice warm dinner, a long hot bath, and about a month worth of sleep. She may have wished for this kind of training, but it didn't mean she had to like it. Naru picked up on the stray thoughts and sighed, preparing an excuse to get Ino out of whatever was coming. He on the other hand was more than willing to keep going provided he was given food and soon. Atu-san, Kakashi-sensei, are we late for dinner or something? He asked, hoping for the best or to deter one or both of the Junin. Oh, there you are, Naru-kun. We missed you at the meeting today and Sasuke and Sakura asked me to check up on you. Kakashi said, looking up from his book with his usual lazy expression. I really doubt that, sensei, but thanks for trying. So, what brings you out here? Naru wasn't going to trick himself with the possibility of any of his teammates giving a damn for his well-being, especially after getting the uncensored version of their thoughts directly from the source. I ran into Inoichi-san and he invited me to dinner so he could show off the son he is so proud of, and to reassure me what you were all right. I also needed to drop off your application for the Chunin exams or else you couldn't register for them. He responded in a bored voice and watched Naru blink as his mind registered the word Chunin exams. In retrospect he realized that it wasn't his best plan ever, when Naru jumped into the air with a loud cry of celebration and two trees suddenly shattered at their base from some sort of direct strike of violet energy. Guess I lost control again. He laughed, nervous, rubbing the back of his head, while also rebuilding his mental shield. He fell forward when Ino hit him in the back of the head. Baka, stop losing control. Kami knows, if you were like Shikamaru Baka this wouldn't be a problem. Ino stopped there before smiling and sharing a look with her father. Anyway, since you have so many people teaching you I don't think you need me hanging around. Kakashi began, but Naru halted him with a look filled with determination. Train me, he demanded simply with a cold voice. You've been spending way too much time with Sasuke-kun. Naru-kun, I mean, what do you still need help with that I could be of any use? It was a loaded question as he planned to help anyway, but why not mess with his loud student some first? Teach me how to kill an opponent, and ninjutsu to do this. If I have to protect my precious people. Teach me better control over my heart and my emotions. So I can use the power contained within me without risking my friends and family. Both of them. I need your help, sensei. Please help me. The speech had left everyone silent, both because of what he asked and the fact someone who never asked anyone for anything, had asked for help. After that speech, how can I turn you down? The man joked, ruffling the blonde's hair and breaking the silence. Naru smiled and the quartet walked inside for dinner. It was during the dinner that Ino finally had to ask a question that was on her mind. Naru Oni-san, why is it your hair is not staying spiked up in the air, and why does it seem longer than yesterday? She purposely asked out loud in order to force him into answering. My hair's not that naturally spiky, it was a little when I was younger, but I usually force it into its usual mess of spikes anymore. Hokage Oji-san told me once it reminded him of someone he once knew, and I, well, wanted to make him smile since he was the only person who ever looked out for me. I just haven't done it since we got back from Wave. I haven't felt like it, he responded, continuing to shovel food into his mouth. Okay, but why does it look longer today? Because it is longer today, duh, he replied simply and felt Ino's fist slam into his head. Baka, how can your hair be that longer in one day? She demanded. My hair grows really fast. I've never really know why. I guess it has something to do with the bastard fox, but I could be wrong. I usually have to cut it with a kunai 2 times a week to keep it manageable. He answered, rubbing his head. See, isn't life much better when we listen to Big Sister? Ino said, smiling sweetly. We're fraternal twins, Baka. Maybe you should listen to your big brother. Naru fired back. You're not mature enough to be older. Baka, however, I am a mature young woman with worldly ways. I've been out of the village longer and have gone farther than you. Miss, worldly ways. The pair traded words for another minute before slipping into a glaring contest along with sticking their tongues out at each other. It was apparent that neither remembered the 3 adults in the room. Kakashi curved his eye up in a smile, while Inoichi and Misao were looking back and forth between the 2 children trying to keep up. And so the days passed. 2 months later, a pair of figures sat on the highest branch of a tall tree within the forest. The darkness of night around them only broken by the full moon's light and the twinkling of stars in the sky. The few clouds that hung in the sky were suddenly caught in the wind and slid away, illuminating the figures and revealing them be a young blonde girl and an equally young blonde boy, each having a very close resemblance to the other. Those who knew them would recognize Yamanaka Naru and Yamanaka Ino, but they had certainly changed in their time away. Ino's hair had grown slightly longer but remained in her standard ponytail along with the single long bang in the front of her face, but her eyes, while being the same blue shade, held now a sense of calmness and maturity with them along with a silent strength. She was dressed in a pure black version of her old outfit, the sleeves remaining white along with a silver band around each of her wrists and ankles, and her forehead protector still worn as a belt. But the material had been changed over to black as well along with her ninja sandals. Naru on the other hand looked completely different from the childish genin known as Uzumaki Naruto, with his blonde hair allowed to grow long and fall behind him unbound in gentle waves of yellow and a pair of golden bangs falling in front of his face drawing attention to his cerulean blue eyes that held a sense of serenity and peace within them, or just an image of being eternally bored and calm. He was dressed in a loose black shirt with a pair of black forearm guards and black fingerless gloves on each of his hands, with each having a circle of metal set into the palm and metal guards on top of the hand. Below the waist he wore a pair of black pants bearing several pockets along with black shin guards and black ninja sandals with bindings securing the cuffs of his pants against his legs. Over it all he was wearing a long white high-collared cloak that was kept closed leaving his outfit and body completely hidden beneath it. He still wore his forehead protector in its traditional place but the material like Ino's had been changed over to black. Tomorrow we go back to the village, which leaves us with about a week to spend with our teams before the exams start. Naru mused looking up at the full moon. Are you scared about going back? Ino asked turning her eyes to stare at her twin. No, I can't run from the past or change it, but I can try to make my future better. What do I have to fear, when I have the greatest family and I'm part of who will be known soon as the strongest clan on Konoha? Besides I don't have the custom of run away or let my fears defeat me. Kasen told me it's the stubbornness that you and I, along with the rest of our clan, we share. Good because if you were afraid I was going to drag you back, kicking and screaming anyways. I expect no less from you. Oni-san. A comfortable silence spread over the pair only broken once again by Naru. Do you think we're ready to take the Chunin exams? He asked looking away from the moon and turning his attention to his fellow blonde. Ino tapped her chin in thought before responding. We certainly have gotten stronger that's for sure and Guy-sensei seemed impressed with how far we developed with the Uriken actually getting past the basics and into the 4 branch styles we each preferred or could use best. You have the jutsus you've developed and the abilities you're able to perform in combination or alone with our Kekkei Genkai. I have my new jutsus, along with the extra training Atusan gave me while you were working with Kakashi-san and my own budding abilities with the Kekkei Genkai. We have a lot left to learn in all 3 types of ninja techniques though and we are still creating and improving more of our unique jutsus, so in no way are we perfect or super powerful. I think we are ready for the exams but by no means is it going to be easy so we just try our best and succeed. I mean I know I will advance, but you on the other hand, without me there to guide you might fall apart Oni-san. She laughed at the glare Naru shot her with the teasing remark. Let's go back. Naru responded and stood up from the branch revealing he had grown a few inches in the past few months making his height just about level with Ino's. Who put you in charge? That reminds me, Shikamaru-kun told me the other day during my last, mellowing training session, about you asking him how you would look in green spandex. Something you want to tell me about, dear Oni-san? Breaking into a foxy grin. Naru suddenly vanished as he quickly leapt away laughing the entire way. Grr. Naru, you're so dead for that comment. Get back here and take your punishment like a man. Are you listening to me Yamanaka Naru? Birds scattered at the eruption of Ino's temper and her rage-filled cry as she gave chase after the laughing blonde. Twice a year, if someone were to look up into the skies above the hidden village of Konoha, they would find several hawks performing circles in the air before flying back towards the Hokage Tower. Such a sight would be quite odd, unless you had lived in Konoha all your life, or you were a Junin, and to a lesser extent a Chunin. The truth was, that these birds seen 2 times a year were a signal, calling the ninja ranks together for a very special ceremony, which concerned the genin-ranked shinobi. Hence why they were never privy to the meeting. Standing in crisp lines before the Sandaime Hokage, the group waited for the man to begin this annual tradition. Among these people were 4 Junin, who actually had a purpose for attending. Sitting before the assembled, the aged leader of the Leaf Nen took a puff from his pipe. Sitting on either side of him was a member of the village's council. Clearing his throat and drawing all attention to him the Hokage, got down to the business at hand. The time for the Chunin selection exam has come again and this time Konoha shall be playing host to all of the nation's candidates. We will begin the nomination ceremony with the Junin sensei of this year's rookie genin teams. Sarutobi spoke, calling on the 3 ninja entrusted with the most recent crop of ninja. Kakashi stepped forward, for once all business in his stance and walk, lacking his usually laziness. Next to him, and in the center of three people now standing before the village leader, was a beautiful woman with dark hair and crimson eyes. The last person was smoking a cigarette, and bore a family resemblance to Sarutobi. Their names were Yuhi Kurenai and Sarutobi Asuma. I now call upon you now to hear if your teams are fit for the challenge of the Chunin selection exam or if any of your genin is judge worthy of participating. The third asked, a sly smirk on his lips. I, Sarutobi Asuma, Junin Sensei of Genin Cell 10, hereby nominate all three members for the Chunin exam. The smoking man replied simply, causing some shock in the ranks of ninja. I, Yuhi Kurenai, Junin Sensei of Genin Team 8, nominate Hyuga Hinata, Inazuka Kiba, and Aburame Shino for the Chunin exam. The red-eyed woman followed suit, causing murmurs to roll through the crowd of ninja listening. I, Hitaki Kakashi, Junin Sensei of Genin Squad 7, consisting of Haruno Sakura, Uchiha Sasuke, and Yamanaka Naru, nominate all three of these genin for the Chunin exam. That seemed to be the last straw needed to cause uproar. Kakashi, you can't be serious, they're only children. A Chunin bearing a scar across his nose, by the name of Iruka, was able to get out before anyone else, causing the silver-haired Junin to regard him. They are no longer your students, Iruka, and you cannot protect them from the real world anymore. I know my students are ready, and I do not appreciate you second-guessing my training of them, and their development. Kakashi stated in a cold reply. You go too far, my eternal rival. Even I waited a year to enter my youthful students into the Chunin exam. Guy spoke up from his place in the shinobi ranks. Enough. The shout from the white-robed leader brought the room to silence. His gaze piercing any who might dare make a sound. It is the decision of the Junin leader whether their squad will or will not compete. If they believe these genin ready, then that is the end of the matter. Let the record show that all three rookie genin teams will be entering the exam. Now then, who else will be nominated? He continued, putting the matter to rest. Toketsu Amari, Junin Sensei, Team 5, Ayanami Ryu, Megami Asuka, and Yamanaka Meia, all nominated. A voice spoke from within the crowd. The others parted, revealing it to be a young Junin with dark blue eyes and dark brown hair held in a ponytail that fell to her left. She was dressed in the standard outfit, colored dark blue, with her Junin vest, and a dark blue trench coat over it. Maida Guy of Team 2, all of my youthful students are nominated. Guy yelled, pumping his fist into the air, making the assembled ninja sweat drop at his antics. And so, on it went. Training Field 2. Hyuga Neji sighed for the seventh time that day, as he watched his teammate Rock Lee continue his usual psychotic amount of taijutsu training, from his spot comfortably resting against a tree. The 2-month reprieve from the clone of his sensei had been like a trip to paradise for the branch family member, and the extra training he had gotten in the Jiyuken made it all the sweeter, really. A flurry of senbon needles suddenly impacted several of the log-based targets, forming pictures, vague outlines of organs, or in one case a line that was supposed to resemble dribbling blood. If 2 months away doing whatever it was Lee and their sensei were doing hadn't changed the fuzzy-browed genin at all, then his other teammate had come back almost entirely warped from before. That fact was further emphasized as a shuriken embedded a straw dummy right between the legses, forcing the prodigy to hold in a wince. Tenten, the budding weapons mistress and self-proclaimed future legendary kunoichi of Konoha, had walked into the team's training field that morning, dressed in a black trench coat, under which she wore a blood-red version of her old Chinese-style shirt, black shorts, and a pair of black knee-high boots with red trim, which Neji learned quickly, held a long knife almost katana length in each. The girl still seemed to have the same personality, if filled with a little bit of flirting or threatening in it, not to mention the almost tangible feeling of bloodlust coming from her. I heard they are letting some rookies take the exam this time. Neji spoke up, breaking the silence. Yosh, their flames of youth must rage with true passion if they are taking part in such an arduous task. Lee piped up, almost a pity to crush their dreams, but then again the Yamanaka heiress is entering with her team as well. Tenten added, inflicting a kunai out, stabbing a target dead center from her place on the branch above Neji. These exams will be entertaining. The Byakugan user nodded. I wouldn't underestimate Guy Sensei's eternal rivals team. Naru-kun is really strong. His springtime of youth was awe-inspiring during our time together. It's their fate to lose to us. It will be fun to finally cause someone else to bleed with what Anko-sensei taught me. Tenten finished slithering down the tree to embrace Neji from behind. Although a taste of you Neji-kun might be just what the doctor ordered. The bun-haired girl thought with a wicked-looking smirk. After all, the insane tutor of hers had taught Tenten to mix business with pleasure, and there was no quicker way into a man's heart than to make him bleed, or was it through his stomach? Honestly, with so many rants from Anko, she was hard-pressed not to mix a few of them up. Would you like to spar with me, Neji-kun? Tenten drawled out slowly, leaning against his back, and pressing herself into him. Though she couldn't see it, Tenten could feel the slight warming of the Hyuga prodigy's face. She giggled when the unflappable Neji began to stutter with his blush, and even looked down involuntarily, mimicking the supposed weakest of the Hyuga main house. Bridge. Uchiha Sasuke blinked as he was not the first person to arrive at the meeting spot for Team 7 for once. Instead, he found a long-haired blonde, wreathed in a snow-white cloak and forehead protector, with black cloth around the metal instead of blue, leaning against one of the railings. It took only a heartbeat's moment for the Sharingan user to recognize his estranged teammate once the boy looked to him, revealing the triple slashes on each of his cheeks. Recalling the last time the two of them had been around one another, Sasuke quickly set his face in a scowl and glared at Naruto. "Can we talk before Sakura gets here?" Naruto spoke with a sigh, speaking the words from memory. That is to say, the rehearsal Ino forced him to do in order to, in her own words, save your team long enough to become a Chunin. Seeing the dark-haired boy nod simply, Naru pushed down his loud nature enough to speak. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for exploding like I did on the way back here and for the things I said. What you think about in the privacy of your own mind is your business, not mine. I even understand your arrogance. I mean, you did awaken your Sharingan during the fight, and anyone would want to test it out immediately. In any case, I apologize for going off like I did, and you don't have to worry about it happening again. I have my mind reading under control now. Yamanaka Naru stood on pins and needles as he watched the last of the loyal Uchiha stare him down. It annoyed him to no end that the other male was taking his sweet time to consider his words. Here he was, trying to preserve some sort of friendship with his rival, and some spirit of teamwork, and the Teme dared to just stand there. Let no one say that Naru lacked patience, but still 12 years of being a hot-headed prankster, coupled with his bred-in temper, could only be held back so long. Nice outfit, Dobi. Good to see you're finally getting stronger, even if it doesn't matter. Sasuke finally responded with a smirk. Naru breathed an overly dramatic sigh, figuring that was as much as he would get from the Uchiha in terms of an acceptance. Good to see 2 months hasn't changed you, Teme. He fired back with a smile, glad to be back to some semblance of normalcy. The pair lapsed into silence, until their pink-haired teammate arrived 15 minutes after Sasuke, who immediately fended off her latest attempt at a date with a flat, no, like always. With that daily routine out of the way, Sakura finally noticed the blonde, and immediately growled before turning away from him with her nose in the air, and her arms crossed. Naru took a deep breath, controlling his temper, and reminding himself that before everything happened in Wave, these two were the closest things he had to friends. I'm sorry, Sakura, for everything I said on the road back from Wave Country, and for snapping at everyone. You need to understand that, with my Kekkei Genkai awakened, I couldn't stop hearing either of yours thoughts, and it became so hard to listen to it day in and day out that I just lost it. We came together in Wave Country, and I'd rather not lose either of you as friends, even if one of you is still a Teme. Naru spoke, changing the speech up ever so slightly, and hoping that the pink-haired girl had mellowed partially within 2 months. Sakura cracked open one of her eyes, and watched the blonde as he stood waiting patiently for a response. A part of the girl was still astounded by the changes in the boy, while the other part just wanted to hit him over the head for everything he had said before. Taking in a deep breath, Sakura turned towards Naruto, and stalked up to him. If he was afraid of whatever she might do, he never showed it, just stared right back at her with a calm, almost unnerving gaze. Even after everything he said and heard, Naruto wants to be my friend. Maybe I have been a little harsh on him. If he's willing to apologize, then I should be willing to accept. After all, we are teammates, and he's right, we did come together in Wave Country. Not that I won't scare him a little. Just don't do it again, Naruto Baka, she said with a huff, and then smiled. Don't worry, your thoughts are safe from me. He replied with a foxy grin. So what is this Kekkei Genkai that you unlocked? Sasuke asked, his interest piqued just a bit. Before Naruto could reply, the form of their Junin sensei appeared in a puff of smoke reading his usual perverted book. Yo, he greeted with a wave. You're late. Both Naru and Sakura yelled at the silver-haired former prodigy, while Sasuke used his usual mocking glare to get his displeasure across. Ah, well, it's good to see you three have already worked out your issues, and to see all is back together. Now then, I was late for a very good reason, but if you don't want to hear it. Kakashi spoke, his eye curving upwards to show that beneath his mask he was smiling. I really don't want to hear about your latest venture to the bookstore, Kakashi-sensei. Naru said, figuring the silver-haired Junin just wanted to talk about his latest perverted book purchase. Now Naru-kun. I know you're excited about the Chunin exams, but still, I need to tell your teammates, or else you will be the only one to show up. The man replied, and watched realization pass over Sasuke and Sakura's faces. That's right, I officially nominated Team 7 to participate in the Chunin selection exam. Kakashi announced, and watched an arrogant smirk spread across the face of the Uchiha, and a bit of excitement mixed with nervousness fill the pink-haired Kunoichi's face. Reaching into his vest, he removed a new orange book with his right hand, and 2 sheets of paper with his left, holding them out to his genin. Then I went to the bookstore. Sasuke, Sakura, I already gave Naru-kun his registration papers, but here are yours. Fill them out, and turn them in at the academy the day the exams start. And remember, you have a choice about taking the exams or not. Sasuke simply nodded, taking the papers along with Sakura. Well, that's it really. You guys have a week until the exams start, so you might want to train or something until then. With those parting words, Kakashi vanished in a puff of smoke. If we're going to do this, I think we better do like he asked and train. Not in individual strengths, but as a unit. Just in case we need to rely on each other during the exam. Sakura stared at her blonde teammate, blinking at the logical plan he had just spouted while placing his hands behind his head and staring up at the clouds. Who are you, and what did you to Naruto? She demanded, leveling a finger at him, her eyes wide. It's a long and complicated story, which involves me more than once being bound and gagged by Shikamaru. You know, he moves a lot faster than we ever gave him credit. I figure if we are going to be a team, you need to hear it, and I know Sasuke Teme is waiting to hear about my Kekkei Genkai. So let's sit down and talk. That is, if you're both willing to work with me. Naru replied with a yawn, sitting underneath a tree. The pair shared a look before moving under the tree in front of Naru, and making themselves comfortable. Which is to say, Sasuke leaned against the tree, and Sakura sat next to Sasuke. A pair of bright blue eyes regarded them for a moment longer, almost reconsidering what he was about to say. But then figuring that Ino would find out if he chickened out, and he would never hear the end of it. Knowing his Oni-san, she would then either go and tell them herself, or drag him back here and make him do it anyway. So figuring he lost either way, he opened his mouth to begin. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Yamanaka Naru, and despite my new, hip, attitude, I still love ramen. And so the day progressed. Ninja Academy. Amino Iruka looked up from his paperwork, which consisted of grading his students' latest tests and practical evaluations, as a hand snatched his pen right out of his hand. Preparing to lecture whoever had decided to skip detention in order to bug him, the scarred Chunin was surprised to find the lightly smiling face of his fellow ramen lover, Uzumaki Naruto. No, he corrected himself, Yamanaka Naru. By now the entire village, or at least the shinobi population, knew the truth about the blonde demon container and his discovery of family. Iruka had been happy for his former student finally having more people to care for him. Not as elaborate as your usual troublemaking. Having an off day, Naru-kun? Iruka teased, snatching his pen back. Hey Iruka-sensei. Thought I'd come by since we just finished our team meeting, and visit you. The blonde replied sheepishly, plopping down on the teacher's desk, and fidgeting a bit with his hands. Oh really? So if I offered to treat you to some ramen at Ichiraku's, you'd turn me down politely? Iruka asked with a smile, but frowned when Naru turned his head down. I was just joking, Naruto. If you want, we can go share a couple of bowls and... He began, but was cut off by the blonde. It's not about ramen. The words lacked the usual energy or exuberance associated with the jailer of the Kyuubi. They almost sounded lost. What's on your mind, Naruto-kun? he asked after a minute, slipping for a second time with the boy's name. Iruka-sensei. How are you supposed to act when you're around your family? The Chunin instructor stared, gaping at the question passing from his former student's lips. Why would you need to know that? A Tucson told me yesterday that, this week, the entire Yamanaka clan was gathering for some sort of event, and I was going to be introduced to everyone, but I don't know how I am supposed to act. I don't want to make everyone hate me by not doing something I am supposed to. Naruto lowered his head after this, feeling embarrassed. I don't really know how to answer that, Naruto, but I can say this. If you just be yourself, then your family will love you. That's what it means to be a family after all. You wouldn't want them to like you just because you can act like someone other than yourself, so I guess my advice is to just be normal, and let them get to know you. Iruka watched the blonde nod simply to his words, but it seemed like a visible aura of sadness still clung to the young genin. Something else is bothering you, isn't it, Naruto? Instead of answering, the son of Inoichi and Misao picked up a pencil from the desk and began to turn it over and over with his fingers, holding the wooden writing instrument like someone would a needle as it passed from one finger to the next. I can't talk to Onisan about it. I don't think she even knows about our mission to Wave Country. A Tucson and Okasan know, but I really don't know if I can trust them yet, and that bothers me, but I just can't trust easily after all this time. Kakashi-sensei hasn't, or won't, ask about it, though he did help as much as he could when I asked back in Wave Country, but I can't get it out of my head. As he spoke, Naruto's voice was low, yet his fingers began to move quicker, moving the pencil faster. What happened on your mission that's got you this upset, Naruto-kun? Iruka-sensei, have you ever killed before? The words were spoken softly, but carried a heavy burden within them. Naruto. The scarred Chunin honestly didn't know how to answer the boy's question. Like all ninja, before he became a teacher, Iruka had in fact been on more than a few assassinations or other missions that required him to kill. It was after he had lost teammates in a particularly bloody fight with a group of Iwa ninja that he decided to try and prepare future generations for that kind of fate. I felt it, every second of it, as my chakra spread out, overlapping theirs like a sheet, and funneling into their bodies, giving me absolute control right before everything shut down. That's how it works. My psionic energy lashes out like a wave, seeping into the body, and then everything just stops working. No pain or screaming, just the cold embrace of death. Have you ever felt death, Iruka-sensei? Because I have, and it is the coldest sensation in the world. It leaves you feeling so hollow inside, you want to do anything to escape the numb emptiness. That's what I did in Wave Country. I stared two people in the eyes, and with hatred in my heart, I used this Kekkei Genkai to kill them. No one seems to care that I killed them. In fact, some people think I did a good thing killing them, but I just can't get this feeling of wrongness but of my mind. No one will ask me how I feel about killing them, or tell me how I should feel about taking their lives and how to deal with it. They just expect me to smile and continue going on learning how to use this deadly ability and spend time with my newfound family. But Haku won't get to see his family or start a new one. Gato, for all his vileness, won't ever have a child or see his family again. Maybe the village is alright with this. Maybe my family, teammates, and the Hokage accept this, but I'm not alright. Naruto finished, his right hand flashing out suddenly, and sending the pencil flying like a deadly needle. The quiet after his proclamation was broken by the loud thud of the pencil sharpened end impaling a mounted portrait of the Shodai Hokage. Piercing right through his throat, and actually penetrating the wall behind the picture. Ever since I've been able to think straight again, little things like that have been happening. It's not like I have actual memories from Haku and Gato, but more like a small impression on my mind. I've caught myself identifying herbs, or wondering about some businesses since we came back yesterday. I'm still me, but I can feel the backlash from using that attack on them. The attack I use is dangerous like that, it could destroy my mind one day because of the psychic backlash. After all, for every action there's a reaction. In order to kill like that, there must be a penalty, a price paid. Naruto looked up as he felt Iruka place a comforting hand on his shoulder. That, Naruto-kun, is what makes you both a good ninja and a good man. Killing has to be done sometimes, especially as a shinobi, but if you do it to protect that which is precious to you. Now come on, I'll treat you to some ramen and listen to all that's bothering you. Naruto smiled, following the man out of the classroom. Yamanaka Flower Shop. Shindo. Impact. Naru's fist slammed into a large stationary log before him, and a second after it hit, a large dent formed in the wood, sending splinters into the air, and causing cracks along the surface. The newly discovered Yamanaka was in the backyard the morning after his little talk with Iruka, feeling better than normal, while one of his cage bunshin tended to the duties his Okasan had delegated to him involving the flower shop. Spinning around, he brought a sharp kick into the lower part of the log, but without the explosive aftershock that followed his punch. All in all, Naru was impressive to watch, moving around the log, flowing around and lashing out with punches and kicks, then bending and turning his body in impossible angles to avoid imaginary blows. The Uriken, in its most basic form, is not about raw strength, but speed and agility. Moving around the opponent and striking them without ever being touched. The true power of my Uriken taijutsu style, however, comes from the four branches, Keshou Sume, Crystal Claw, which requires control and concentration, which is why Onisan uses it, and why I may never grasp it. Fukai Kiba, Deep Fang, which can completely cripple or kill a person with a precise strike, yet looks like nothing more than a harmless poke from my fingers. Akuma Kanedzuchi, Demon Hammer, a punch that can shatter bones or bring down a wall. Even at its weakest, using barely any psionic energy to create the ramming force, it still leaves a dent in a log. Ino has nearly made the first branch an art form, and I can easily use the other two, but still, before I can even attempt the final branch, let alone master the style, I have to learn how to fully release my attacks at any range against an enemy. Without that skill, then the fourth branch, the Geshoku Nami, Moon Eclipse Wave, can't be learned. I won't hold Ino back just because this is tough. I've never backed down from my training and I won't now. I'll master this skill, just you wait and see world. Leaping back, he took a deep breath, a ring of violet forming in each of his eyes seeming to glow. Violet psionic energy became a visible aura around his body as Naru slowly slid down into the Uriken first stance, which is Naru's left foot extended and leading with his left hand raised and palm pointed forward, right foot planted behind him bearing his weight and his right hand at his side curled into a fist. This first stance was made to offer both strong defensive possibilities and offense, allowing the fighter to judge an attacking enemy and deflect their strikes, or to quickly pivot away. In the attacking role, the fighter could launch forward to lash out with a punch before flowing into other attacks. Slowly, the violet aura began to slither and congregate around Naru's closed fist, molding against the knuckles, and crawling up, enclosing the entire fist and lower arm. The aura of my soul and mind is one, only visible to the eye because of so much of it being called on and then compacted. Wow, I sound kinda smart like this, and I must look pretty cool. No. Focus. Last time I got off my train of thought doing this, I ended up in a wall. Shindo, he shouted, thrusting his fist at the log, causing the air in front of him to ripple as the violet aura was suddenly sent screaming forward in a straight line, creating winds and air currents as it moved, thus making stray pebbles and dust, along with the grass, sway. When it slammed into the log, all was still for a second, before a fist-sized hole was plowed through the wood, and then the log splintered, breaking apart, the pieces being flung back by the sheer force applied upon impact. Naru's hands suddenly twitched, and began flashing forward, striking the air and releasing more and more of the ranged Akuma Kanedzuchi attacks, filling the yard with fist-sized craters as each impacted away from the gardens behind him. Bright blue eyes narrowed in determination, he kept stepping back, trying to squeeze just another little bit of space into each attack, the strain of the technique causing sweat to begin running down his brow and to be flung from his arms. I had to push myself harder and faster than anyone else. That's how it's always been, just so I can look myself in the eye at the mirror and prove I'm not a failure like they say. I can do this. I can master the things bushy brows and sparkly teeth sensei wanted me to learn. I gave my word and I never go back on my word, even if it's supposedly impossible. Damn it all, I'm starting to sound like Sasuke Teme. Falling back onto the ground with his arms spread wide, Naru let his eyes be drawn to the sky, and slowly began to examine the clouds drifting lazily overhead. The ring of violet in his eyes remained, and suddenly he rolled to the right just as a kunai embedded itself in the space he had just occupied second earlier. Springing up to his feet, he spun around and came face to face with the form of his Okasan, his cage bunshin being held up in her left hand by the scruff of the neck. I wondered how there could be two chakra signatures when one of you is supposed to be helping me and Ino is supposed to be at her team meeting. Misao spoke sweetly, causing Naru to begin scratching the back of his head in embarrassment. Well, you see, I'm busted, aren't I? He started, only to let it drop and to let his head fall forward with a resigned sigh. If you needed help with training, you should have come to me. Just because I happened to be a florist, I still was a Junin for many years. Those words seemed to stop the blonde short. Wait a second, you're not mad I skipped out on helping? More surprised that a genin knows Junin level technique. More so that you use it the same way Inoichi-kun uses it. This caused Naru to blink rapidly in succession. Kage Bushin no Jutsu, Misao called, forming a quick seal. Though, unlike her sons, this clone seemed to simply phase into existence instead of forming in a puff of smoke. Alright then, you two mind the shop while I teach Naru-kun for a while. The duplicates nodded before heading inside. Do you mean it, Okasan? Naru perked up, coming out of his stupor. With the 2 months up, he didn't have any trainers except Kakashi, and the cycloptic pervert vanished before he could ask to continue their training from before. If you think you can keep up, Naru-chan, she baited, a warm feeling spreading out inside her at being acknowledged a bit by her wayward son. Naruto immediately fell into the Uriken first stance, except his right hand was open, this time the fingers close together. I'd take off your weights, Naru-chan. Arrogance is for the Uchiha and the Hyuga. It doesn't suit you. Ino and Inoichi arrived back at the flower shop at virtually the same time to find Naru without his weights, bearing several bruises and small cuts, fighting all out against Misao, whose left arm was hanging limp with no indication of being broken, just seemingly dead there, but still she was dominating the fight with ease. Wow, Okasan's pretty good, Ino commented. She's out of shape if Naru got her with the Fukai Kiba, considering I've never once got a hit on her back when she was a Junin. I bet she does a little extra training just to prove she still has it. Inoichi replied. How long do you think her arm will be out like that? When Oni-san hit Lee with a Fukai Kiba strike, his arm was down till the next day, I think. Ino shrugged, not noticing a certain gleam enter the other blonde's eye. So you'll cover dinner tonight? Oh yeah, sure, whatever. Whistling happily about avoiding kitchen duty, Inoichi started back towards the house. I'll have to treat Naru-kun to some ramen. I haven't been able to get one over on Ino since she was 7. Dream. Naruto was walking through a forest, the trees and ground colored white by the falling snow. Puffy light gray clouds hovered above, releasing the gentle trickling of crystallized water. Yet the blonde didn't find himself cold, even though his breath was easily seen before him. He could hear the snow crunch with every step taken, but it never occurred to him that he had no idea where those steps were taking him, or that this place was never one he had ever visited in his life. He just kept walking. The further he walked, the more the natural sounds of the forest seemed to change, becoming ethereal and distorted, fusing into a natural, serene orchestral piece of music. Slowly, the dense woodlands parted before him, and Naruto found himself walking in a wide open field surrounded by trees forming a near-perfect circle with tall grass and flower buds poking up out of the still falling snow, completely still despite the wind. In the center of this picturesque scene was a single figure turning in a lazy spin with dark midnight black hair swirling around them like a cape and snow-white skin, dressed in an ice blue Chinese-style dress with a dark blue almost black sash serving as a belt. Gradually the spin came to an end, and Naruto found his eyes captured in the gaze of a pair of dark eyes that he knew all too well, along with a face that haunted his memories. But this person had told him he was a boy, though Naruto still thought he was a she, especially in that dress. Hello Naruto-kun. The person spoke with the simplest of smiles. Haku. But how, you died? Naruto breathed out. The field underneath Haku suddenly began to dissolve upwards, the colors of flower petals and greens of grass a stark contrast with the downward flowing white snow. As the ground was clear, the earth itself rippled, becoming the clear blue of water still, without motion below Haku's sandaled feet, and suddenly long tendrils of water rose, flowing around Haku's body in an elegant display, sections breaking off from each tendril and freezing into beautiful ice crystals. You feel guilt for killing me, don't you, Naruto-kun? For killing someone so like yourself, someone you considered an innocent, and never getting the chance to apologize. Tell me, Naruto-kun, does this form please you? Haku spoke, standing atop the water. You told me you were a boy. You said that if we had met under different circumstance we would have been friends, but still you chose to attack me and try to follow that evil man's bidding. Naruto tried to rationalize, lowering his gaze, his right hand balling into a fist. And you still decided to turn your violet eyes on mine, and slowly enter every pore on my body, violating me physically, mentally, and spiritually, before destroying my life. Humans have a saying that goes, you always hurt the ones you love. Maybe my body was male or female, though you will never know, my body here is clearly that of a woman. If you ask me, Naruto-kun, I will forgive you. Naruto suddenly felt a pair of arms wrap around him from behind, guiding him to sit by the water's edge, Haku hugging him from behind. You're not real, this can't be real. You're dead. You were a boy, this is all a lie. Naruto whispered, trying to make his mind believe it. Neither person noticed the ripple starting to occur in the sky. I'm as real as you let me be, Naruto-kun. I am bound by your will, the small piece of me you took with you the second you killed me. I can still sense so much pain in your heart, even surrounded by family your heart still bleeds black blood because you refuse to shed your tears. It won't last, Naruto-kun. People like us are simply too different to ever be loved, even by our families. Your happiness is false, we both know it, and they will betray just like all the others in your life. Stop it, stop please. You kill without mercy or hesitation. Even now, the blood on your hands only made you eager to learn how to do it easier. Stop. Do you know what that makes you, Naruto-kun? Don't say it. Being so willing to kill, learning to kill so effortlessly, having power like yours makes you a. Leave me alone. Naruto suddenly shouts, slamming his eyes shut against the onslaught of words, an aura of violet flaring around before exploding outward, shattering this snowy world of dreams, leaving the blonde floating in endless blackness. You are able to kill so easily, to destroy everything around you despite a beating heart. Because you are a demon. The words came from everywhere, yet felt whispered into the very core of his being, and then he simply vanished. Slowly, the darkness cleared as the sleeping mind awoke, returning things to their concrete state instead of the abstract of the dreaming. And Haku was standing behind a set of giant bars, a paper seal keeping the gates closed and locked. Smiling widely, the midnight black orbs became blood red and formed slit pupils, a loud male chuckle resounding from deep within the throat of the female. Turning and walking further into the seal, Haku's body shifted and grew, becoming monstrous in height, width, and length, fur sprouting and the body dropping to 4 paws. A maw extended out of the face becoming vaguely canine, and 2 rows of slobbering razor-sharp teeth were seen gleaming. Finally, 9 swishing tails sprouted from the tailbone, swinging wildly. That form is pleasing to you, little boy, but I am not a vixen, so I lack the necessary skills or desire to tempt you further. Still, you have revealed your weakness to me, my dear jailer. I may lack the means to forcibly free myself, but I can still find a use for you to entertain myself. Do stay out of trouble, for my power is still my own, and I shall need it for now to call on a true temptress. You will help clean my slate with Inari-sama, and then the kami and creator of Wikitsune will free me of this hollow prison, granting us both our deepest desire. The deep guttural voice of the Kyuubi no Kitsune rumbled in the dark, just before crimson chakra flowed out of the seal like a tidal wave. Relish these next few nights of peaceful dreams, little boy, for they are the last you will spend without my supervision. Yamanaka compound. It was 3 days after his rather odd dream that Yamanaka Naru found himself walking next to his twin, as they passed through the wooden gate doors that separated their clan's lands from the rest of Konoha. He was dressed in a black oriental-style button-up shirt with long and abnormally wide sleeves and simple black pants with black ninja sandals. His hair loose, and kept out of his eyes by his ever-present forehead protector. Next to him, Ino was dressed in a light blue silk kimono with gold floral and vine patterns twisting over the surface. A simple pair of wooden sandals adorned her feet, and her hair was loose from its usual ponytail with her forehead protector worn around her neck. Inoichi and Misao were dressed more formally than either young ninja in darker colored kimonos. Why couldn't I just wear something orange? Naru thought with a sigh, missing his former bright clothing. Because, my dear Oni-san, I would have taken great pride in finding my bluntest kunai and reenacting a certain part of your genin exam if you tried it. Ino replied mentally without pause, smiling ever so sweetly at the boy when he visibly paled. You ever think that you put just a little too much emphasis on appearance? Of course not. I am the #1 rookie Genin Kunoichi in the village. My sense of style that I unselfishly share with you is just an added bonus to my beautiful perfection. And oh so humble too, it's hard to believe you're not an angel. He thought in sarcasm and trying to keep it to himself. An act he must have failed at when Ino suddenly narrowed her eyes and developed a tic. If I apologize now, can I avoid a thrashing the next time we spar? Grr. She's just standing there, looking so superior like the rest of us are beneath her. Ino's angry thoughts were the only response, and they weren't even against him, leading to Naru blinking in confusion. Did I miss something? He asked out loud, turning his head to gaze at the rapidly growing anger on his twin's face. What? Ino snapped, turning her burning eyes on Naru, causing him to gulp before she breathed a sigh and calmed. I'm sorry, Oni-san. I just have some issues with one of our cousins. She apologized. Don't worry about it. I'm used to your moods by now, but which one are you talking about? Swiveling his head to where Ino mentally directed, he took in the sight presented. A sea of sun-kissed golden yellow hair, broken only by the differing possible shades, or the hair colors of those who married into his newly discovered clan. Yet his eyes were drawn beyond, to the front of the clan house, to a pair greeting every incoming family member. The first was an aged man in a white kimono, his face nearly splitting with a wide smile causing his few wrinkles to stretch. Those that greeted him did so with warmth and respect, identifying him as the family's head and current leader. However, it was the far younger and female Yamanaka standing next to the man that drew Naru's eyes and was the target of Ino's venom. She stood at 5'1" and appeared no older than the twins, with light blue nearly gray hair and beautiful emerald green eyes and lightly tanned skin only a step or two from being pale. She wore a light blue kimono with white lotus blossom patterns running up from the left side of her waist to her right shoulder and then, behind her back, a white obi also encircled her trim waist, and simple wooden sandals like most of the other women were on her feet with white tabi socks. If it wasn't for the apathetic look or fake smile she dolled out, the young lady would be the focus of almost every young man's attention. Even then it wasn't uncaring, more like she was uncomfortable and unused to being around people. Don't you dare develop a crush on her, Oni-san. She might look cute, but she is the most antisocial and downright mean-spirited girl I have ever met. Even Forehead Girl is better than her. Ino warned mentally, and watched Naru blink clueless at her. Who is she, Oni-san? She doesn't look typical of everyone else, but she is getting respect like she were a Hokage. She gets her looks from her mother, but she is Saya Ojiazen's granddaughter and the heir to take over the clan when he retires or passes on. She's a prodigy as well. After her parents died, she threw herself into the arts of the ninja. She graduated the year before us. Her name is Yamanaka Meia. She explained as the pair neared the house. As their turn came, Ino bowed in respect to Saya, and Naru copied her movements, only to gasp for air as the elderly ninja pulled both into a bone-crushing hug. Ino giggled a bit from the hug, seeming to enjoy it while he started to turn purple from lack of oxygen. When the hug was finally released, Naru bent over his knees, drawing in as much air as his lungs could hold before noticing both Ino and Saya were smiling down at him, while Meia merely regarded him with impassiveness. You'll get used to Ojiazen's hugs, if they don't choke you first. Ino joked as he straightened up. Meia-chan, go on inside with Ino and prepare for dinner. I'd like to spend a little time with Naru-kun before we join everyone. Saya spoke, placing a hand on the young man's shoulder. Hi, was the simple response from the girl as she turned, heading inside, followed by a glowering Ino, smoke almost visibly flowing out of her ears at being near the girl. Inoichi, Misao, I will see you both inside. Saya stated with a smile, leading Naru away from the crowd entering the house or just mingling outside, making his way to the more quiet and tranquil gardens kept on the grounds. I've wanted to meet and talk to you for a while now, truthfully, and get to know you as more than just an infamous face, and the potential progenitor of our Kekkei Genkei. I must also admit, some of your more inspiring pranks I've taken great joy in learning about. Behind that idiotic facade you have a truly crafty mind. The aged man spoke as the pair stopped on a wooden patio overlooking an ocean of flowers painting the landscape in a serene rainbow of colors. Thank you, Saya-sama, the blonde demon container stated, trying to remember all that stuff about manners Iruka had tried to teach them back in the academy. That sounds so forced, and don't be so formal, my boy. We are family after all. Why should we use ranks and titles with blood anyhow? The man spoke with a bit of a laugh, causing Naru to smile, sheepishly rubbing the back of his head. Sorry Oji-san, just trying to make a good first impression. The words came out with a nervous laugh, the boy's eyes squinted nearly shut. Nice try, but I was not an elite Junin for nothing. Now then, tell me about yourself before we go inside and you're ogled by every of-age girl in the family. But that's incest, Naruto yelled. Inside, Ino sat, her hands fidgeting and her eyes trying to stave off a twitch as she sat near the head of the main table across from Meia, waiting for Saya and Naru to come back inside. The main dining room of the clan house was more like a large ballroom with a long table brought in than a traditional dining room. If they had to build such a room, the small clan would be separated into more than a few rooms, which would instead of making the family feel whole simply serve to divide the close-knit group. Is he strong? Meia asked suddenly, causing Ino to take a deep calming breath to steady her nerves. Do you ever care about anything else? Ino replied with a question, smiling a very sugary sweet smile. I suppose, being your twin, I shouldn't expect much more than mere promise. Gee, is someone sore over the fact that she doesn't have the long-awaited Kekkei Genkei of our family? I must admit, it is a bit of a burden for Naru-kun and I to be so naturally talented, but still I suppose someone has to lead our clan since Naru-kun is going to be Hokage, and I plan to devote myself to becoming the next great kunoichi of Konoha. Though the words were spoken with happiness, the underlying venom was not missed by Meia, who narrowed her eyes sharply. Why would I be sore when things are as they should be? You are the one who gave up the place I now occupy to chase after an emotionally warped and slightly manic Uchiha instead of choosing to be the heir to the clan. I suppose this new ability of yours is a consolation prize. While Meia's words were cutting, it was easy to see she was only saying them in retort. Firing back in kind without any real malice or anger in her voice. Attention everyone. The loud call Fo Saya silenced the words on Ino's tongue as she turned to face the leader of the Yamanaka, a smiling Naru next to him waving enthusiastically at the crowd. We have come together to celebrate our family and its prosperity throughout Fire Country, or be it farther, and as always we remain united, loyal to the ties of blood and marriage that have made us feared in the world since the time of our ancestors, who traveled the world as monks, priests, and priestesses using their psychic and spiritual powers to protect the innocent and battle demons. Now I know we are meeting a little early with our monthly gathering, but since most everyone was already here to watch 3 of our best and brightest compete in the Chunin selection exam, I thought it would be best to enjoy each other's company, and introduce a child of the Yamanaka we thought lost. We were betrayed by Konoha's Yondaime Hokage, and because of it we were left to believe he had died. Yet he stands here today, the first of hopefully many future children to carry that which we have always longed for, the power of psionics. Our clan's ultimate evolved Kekkei Genkei. So now, I present to you for the first time, the son of Inoichi and Misao. Yamanaka Naru. The entire room exploded into cheers and applause as Naru waved wildly, though also blushed under all the positive attention. The moment passed quickly enough, and dinner started with Saya leading Naru to the head of table where he sat next to Ino, while Saya took the head seat. Are you strong, Naru-san? Meia asked halfway through dinner, causing Ino, who had been sharing a mental conversation with the other blonde, to let out a sigh. Stronger than Sasuke Teme, that's for sure, but I still have a lot of growing to do. What about you, Meia? He responded with a smile, trying to tone down his arrogance like Kakashi had suggested. I am the strongest of we 3 Yamanaka genin, if not the strongest genin in the village. She replied with the slightest of smiles. You should meet her boyfriend. Oh wait, she doesn't have one. Ino stated after taking a drink of tea. Some of us prefer to train for our duties, instead of chasing after a boy. Naru began to move his head back and forth to follow the thinly veiled insult contest. For your information, I don't have my eyes set on Sasuke anymore. I saw a few things that made him look unattractive. Good. Maybe if you work hard you can catch up to Naru-san and I in strength. Are you calling me weak, Meia-chan? Ino accused, her voice lowering while Naru's grip on his chopsticks tightened. I believe I did. After all, you only know the first basic technique of our family. The grip tightened. It's not quantity, it's quality. The quality of your team is excellent, I agree, but outside of it you lack all but the most basic of skills even with your recent training. The entire room fell silent when Naru's chopsticks snapped and he rose, slamming his hands down on the table. Insult me if you want, I'm used to it, but don't you dare say such things about my Oni-san, or I'll show just how weak you are, and bring you down off that high horse you're sitting on. He spoke coldly, glaring at the blinking green eyes of Meia before she copied his movements and put on the appearance of glaring back. Maybe I should teach you your place then, Naru-kun, and show everyone here, Kekkei Genkei or not, that you are not as special as they all think. She spoke lowly but was easily heard. Anytime anywhere, Meia-chan. Saya whistled, drawing everyone's attention back to him. Seems we have a bit of entertainment for tonight. Everyone hurry and finish up, while I contact the Nara and Akamichi so that Meia and Naru may settle this disagreement in battle. He announced before turning to the pair. You've got an hour to get ready, so I suggest you both hurry, and I think I'll have a surprise waiting as well. Hi. Both responded before glaring at each other and walking away, Ino trailing behind Naru. Children are so easy to manipulate into what you want them to. The gray-haired man thought with a smirk. 1 hour later. This seems a little over the top and elaborate. Naru thought as he stood at one side of a fairly large square-shaped battle zone made seemingly professionally with several gray stones. Several sets of bleachers were set up around the area, slowly being filled with people from the Yamanaka, Nara, and Akamichi clans, all eager to view the coming fight that would demonstrate the skill level of two of the brightest stars of this generation of Yamanaka. Naru was dressed in what had become his normal shinobi attire, trying to contain his excitement and apprehension at being the center of attention from so many people. Meia stood on the opposite side from him, dressed in a very form-fitting outfit that was white on the shoulders, down the sides, legs, and on the chest, while the rest of the bodysuit was black, including her abdomen and arms. A kunai holster was strapped with white tape that blended into the outfit's color on her right side for easy access, and a shuriken pouch rested near her back, almost completely hidden from view. Wow, she's cuter than Sakura, Naru thought for a second. Get those thoughts out of your head right now and prepare to fight. Ino sent into his mind with a shout from her place sitting with Shikamaru and Choji. Take off your weights. I want to fight you at your best. Meia ordered coldly before the match could start. Your wish is my command. He replied, unlacing his forearm bracers and dropping them, followed by his shin guards, the sound of the inlaid metal plates used to weight him down clanging as it touched the stone. Finally he unclasped his cloak and let it drift down to join the rest, where the combined weights caused the stone to crack. It wasn't nearly as much as Lee wore, hence the lack of craters, but still some were impressed that a genin had been wearing so much weight. Hajime. With those words Saya moved out of the area as Naru fell into the Uriken first stance, his hand open with the fingers pointing towards Meia instead of using a closed fist. Visible rings of ethereal violet appearing around each of his pupils. Instantly, the emerald-eyed heiress began flying through a set of hand seals, ending with the ram seal. Hitagokoro no Jutsu. Human spirit technique, Meia called. Her body gaining a light blue aura of chakra as it flowed out, and then slowly, she seemed to simply sink into the ground, leaving no trace, which caused more than a few people to gasp in surprise. Where did she go? Up, left, right, below. Pivoting sharply to the right, he narrowly avoided a strong uppercut as Meia soared upward through the stone floor, leaving not a hole or crack in the surface. Lashing out with his right hand, he attempted to strike her in the midsection with his fingers, only for his hand to pass harmlessly through her once again glowing body, and as he withdrew his hand, her form seemed to solidify right before she slammed a hard right into his chest, sending him back. Chakra flaring in his feet slowed him to a skidding halt just as a barrage of 7 shurikens came flying at him from Meia. Henku. Deflection, the blonde called out, the violet in his eyes brightening even as he narrowed them in concentration. Suddenly, the shurikens seemed to shake in the air before being pushed completely off course by an invisible force. Before Meia could launch another volley, Naru punched the air between them with his fist, which glowed with a gathered violet aura. Shindo, he yelled, and released the ranged attack, which appeared to the audience as a violet distortion screaming through the air towards the blue-haired kunoichi. Meia raised her arms to form an X-shaped block. As the force of the attack slammed into Meia, The crowd watched her hold her ground before the attack hurled her back, cuts opening on her arms from the pressure of the air trapped in front of the attack. Some could see bruising and swelling already coming to the surface, and many others were surprised that attack didn't snap her arms. It was surprising to some, Naru included, when Maya's form sank back into the ground before coming up once more in front of the blonde, who was forced to block an incoming knee followed by a forward-thrusting right-handed palm strike. Retaliating with his left, he wasn't surprised when his opponent moved her head to the side instead of blocking, her hair being tossed by the release of close-range telekinetic force. Snapping her head forward, Meia forced Naru back with the headbutt, though her follow-up strikes were all avoided as the lost Yamanaka seemed to know her moves before she herself did, or he knew the second she tried to execute them, allowing him to effortlessly counter her strategy. Growing slightly frustrated, she charged forward, lashing out with a spinning heel kick only to watch Naru catch her leg, taking the brunt of the attack before slamming two fingers into it and letting go. The crowd watched stunned as the leg was simply limp, unable or unwilling to move, sending Meia to her knees, unable to rise back up. "Sorry, but you can't beat me now. My Fukai Kiba strike has disrupted the signals between your leg and your brain, making it impossible for you to use it until the effect wears off." Naru spoke with a smile, only to duck as Meia sent a shuriken whizzing by his head. "I am not finished yet," she called, actual anger in her voice as she began making seals again. "I won't let him take away everything that I worked so hard for, just because he has a Kekkei Genkai. Hitagokoro Kakuheki no Jutsu, human spirit barrier wall technique." Once more the blue glow of chakra surrounded Meia as she pushed her chakra out, but this time it flared even more, forming a solid sphere of energy around her form. "This is my ultimate defense. You won't be able to attack me until I run out of chakra, or my control over my leg returns, and when it does I will strike you down. This is my contribution to the Yamanaka clan, and I won't let you take my place in it," she explained, glaring with actual anger at the former Uzumaki. "Kakashi-sensei, I hope the technique you taught me can break down her shield, or else I'm beaten. I can't lose this fight. I have to show everyone that I am not just adobe." Forming a set of hand seals, Naru leaned forward, left hand wrapped around his right wrist, and chakra started to spark around his arm, growing in intensity with each second. "Reikuri, lightning edge," he shouts as his entire hand is shrouded in visible chakra which begins to spark before seeming to explode with the sound of 1,000 chirping birds. The ethereal violet rings in his eyes glowed brightly as he rammed the edge of the Reikuri into the stone ground, and darted towards Meia, dragging the jutsu in front of him, ripping a deep tear into the quality flooring. Yet it seemingly didn't slow him down. Once he was nearly on top of the shield, he brought his arm forward, slamming the assassination jutsu right into the front of Meia's ultimate defense, battling for supremacy. "I have trained my entire life to become the most powerful heir I could, forsaking all human attachment just to make my parents proud of me, but then why is it he's overcoming my shield? Why is he so much stronger than me? Am I truly such a weak heiress, such a disappointment to my Atusan and Okasan?" Naru heard loud and clear from Meia's mind as her shield crumbled, though instead of the pain of a B-ranked jutsu slamming into her, Meia instead felt a fist slam into her jaw, sending her rolling back like a rag doll. And even though it hurt, it was worse when she realized there had been no extra telekinetic power behind it. Strength doesn't come from new techniques or Kekkei Genkai, it comes from protecting the people precious to you with all your heart and putting their dreams and lives above even your own. Until you learn what it means to live and love, you won't get any stronger," Naru stated as he stood there taking deep breaths. "Winner, Yamanaka Naru," Saya called out, and the crowd exploded in cheers. "What do I do? Now that he's beat me, he's the heir to the head of the family. I don't know what to do now." A hand obscured her vision, and Meia found Naru offering her a hand up, a smile adorning his face. "You could try living, and I'd even be willing to help. After all, we're family, and I'd like to be your friend." "My friend, but I just tried to humiliate you and I was disrespectful to Ino-chan. I disrespect Oni-san all the time. Besides, I don't think you really meant it, so why not be friends?" "Yamanaka Naru, what an odd but intriguing boy. You did it," Ino shouted, tackling Naru from the right, laughing as he easily got pinned down. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.